You? Are you feeling better? Oh, I'm very happy to hear that.
35 and 42. Luckily, I haven't all like I have my card.
They don't go after the first. Literally. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mayor.
This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Fort Myers Beach Town Council. It is Monday, October 7th, 2019. It's 9 a.m. All council members are present. Town Manager Hernstadt, Town Attorney Herron also present. If you would please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Michelle?
As we gather here today, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community. We ask you to guide those who, as our government leaders, make their daily decisions that affect us, so that their efforts, whether international or local, shall be motivated by the same great rule of charity and goodwill. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. First item on our agenda is an approval of the final agenda. May I have a motion to approve it?
I would move to approve the amended agenda that we've been provided with the change to the administrative agenda of the discussion of amending the short-term rental ordinance.
Second.
Okay, so that is the originally published agenda had the first hearing of amending the short-term rental ordinance under public hearings. It will now be item C under the administrative agenda. Is there any discussion or objection to that motion? The motion passes unanimously. Next item is public comment. Michelle?
Yes, I have a request from Dan Allers.
Dan Allers. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Dan Allers for the record. Hope everyone had a good weekend.
We did.
I just wanted to come in front of you to explain a little bit about my application for the LPA. As you know, I've been on BORCAB for about 2 years. We've worked very hard to get to where we are with the strategic plan. It's pretty far down along on the tracks. It's not all the way there yet, but it's pretty close. So my feeling was by going to the LPA, I could have a little internal knowledge as that progresses forward, as I think we all hope it will. That being said, I also noticed that not as many people on there have the construction background and the, I would say the knowledge of codes and things of that. Also being said, I also noticed and was hoping that there would be more people applying for the Bay Oaks Committee. And after looking at the agenda packet, that is going to have a vacancy. So I just wanted to also let you know that if that vacancy is still here tomorrow, I will be applying to fill that spot. That's all I got. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dan.
My next request is from Joel Messenger.
Mr. Messenger, would you just come up? Were you waiting to speak at a public hearing? You need to say your name.
I don't know if it was appropriate to, I wanted to speak towards an agenda item
Yes,
on
sir.
the restriction of the weekly rental.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so I run a
Would you
prop.
say your name for the
My name
record?
is Joel Messenger. I'm
Thank
with
you, Joel.
Sandcastle Community Management. We manage quite a few condominiums on the beach.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things, when certain people buy, when all people buy in a condominium, they buy subject to a declaration of covenants and restrictions. I'm sure you all know that. And that restricts the deed. So people buy subject to that document, understanding what the do's and don'ts of living in a condominium is all about. And 99 and 9/10 of the time, it speaks to rentals and the duration of same. And what I'm saying, representing the boards of directors that I represent and the homeowners, is that we should allow those restrictions to lead and take precedent over what is required and not required of those individual owners who live in them. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much.
The next request is from Frank Aloya.
Who will follow Mr. Aloya, Michelle?
I have no more.
Okay.
Good morning, Frank Aloya Jr. I'm an attorney for PFITS Roman numeral II LLC, which is the owner of the property at 3633 Estero Boulevard, or 2633 Estero Boulevard. I'm speaking with regard to agenda item 11B as in boy. We are requesting that the City Council mitigate and reduce the code enforcement fine that is accrued on my client's property. And I wanted to go through briefly the timeline for you as to the reasons why we're seeking the mitigation. This property was a foreclosure property. The bank, Deutsche Bank, foreclosed and obtained title in September of 2015. My client ultimately acquired the property in late March of 2016. Had already begun engaging Hunt Construction for the purposes of rehabilitating the property, actually far in excess of what the code enforcement violations were. The code enforcement violation notice didn't accrue until late July of 2016, and we had gone in for our first permit application in November of 16. So my client was obviously ahead of the code enforcement declaration of violation, and ahead of the January 2017 hearing that ultimately created the daily fines. My client's principal resides in Illinois, not familiar with the code enforcement process, and I think relied perhaps too heavily on the general contractor to communicate with the city with regard to what was happening on the property, what was the plan for the property, and to attempt to get out ahead of the code enforcement violation situation that clearly has run away from everyone in this particular instance. Like I said, in late January of 2018 is when the actual fines started accruing. Well, actually, the order was entered that day. It was early February of 18 that they accrued. But from March until July, we were applying for various permits, again, far in excess of the nature of the violations. The contractor actually completed the work in fall of 18, but never contacted code enforcement. And ultimately, code enforcement, I believe on its own, revisited the property, determined that it was in compliance, and itself entered an order in March of 18, determining that the property had been brought into compliance and stopped the fines as of March the 2nd. Unfortunately, we're looking at approximately $58,000 of accrued fines between the time of the order and the ending of the fine period. Based on the foregoing, I hope that you will find it wise to mitigate the fine, and obviously we don't expect the city to not recover its costs of administration in this particular instance, but my client was attempting to rehabilitate the property independent of knowledge of the code enforcement violation process.
Thank you, Mr. Arroyo.
Thank you.
If we have other questions for you during that item.
I'd be
we
pleased
know
to
you're
come
there.
back up. Thank you.
very much,
Thank you,
sir.
Mayor.
Appreciate it.
I have no other requests.
Mr. Gucciardo, is there anybody else that'd like to speak during public comment on any agenda items other than a public hearing? Thank you.
Morning, John Gucciardo on behalf of TPI Hospitality in Margaritaville. As you all know, we're getting very close to beginning the renovation work at the Cigar Hut building, and then hopefully shortly thereafter, you'll see the demolition of some of the other structures, and then ultimately the construction of the new approved project. Over the last few days, we've been working with your staff about trying to erect the what's commonly referred to as the coming soon signs that you often see at construction sites. We have determined that there may be some contradictory language, or at least confusing language in various parts of the code that made it difficult for us to do what we were looking to do in terms of those signage. But I understand this morning that you may be getting a request through the town manager about some options you might consider to allow us to go ahead with those signs. Obviously, we're appreciative of that on the town manager's part, and we look forward to that discussion. Hopefully, you'll be able to come to some compromise to allow us to put up that signage. I think it's pretty obvious that most of the community is looking forward to that. We'd like to be able to comply and get those up as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gucciardo. Anyone else? Anybody else? Okay. The public comment is closed. Next item is local achievements and recognitions. Joanne, do you have anything?
Just a shout out, of course, to Penny Jarrett and the whole water testing group. People were out all around the Gulf Front and the Back Bay participating in the second round of testing, and we all look forward to those results and beginning comparisons. But thank you to everybody who waded in the water, kayak, dipped in, however, and got those samples to participate. It's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Roxanne?
I would echo Joanne's sentiments. I saw a lot of people coming in with their results. Everybody was happy to participate. It was wonderful to see the community involvement in such a positive manner. And I thank everybody for helping.
Mr. Murphy?
I would echo the echo and thank everybody that participated in that. And other than that, I don't have anything else to add.
I don't have anything, thanks.
Okay. I'm just going to comment here on a meeting that Roger and I had and thank the Lee County Visitor and Convention Bureau for hiring the firm of, gosh darn it, I can't remember the name of the firm. The gentleman's name was Stewart, and they are, this company is doing the investigative work and ultimately the rebranding of our Visitor and Convention Bureau and all of our tourism effects. And what was supposed to be about a 45-minute with Roger and I ended up being about an hour and a half. It was a very engaging conversation. This gentleman was truly interested in our point of view about our community, and I just want to give a kudos, and I'll bring this up at the TDC meeting this Thursday, of selecting somebody who had such a dynamic personality and interest in each individual community that he was meeting with. It was a really great meeting, and I just wanted to give a shout out to them.
I remember, I probably should mention, everybody's looking forward to the offshore boat races.
Oh, yes.
And the bridge will be closed Thursday, is that correct? And the
Yes.
exact time?
Thursday evening, and I'll get the exact times. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I'll.
There's flashing signs at the bridges, and be aware that
Yeah, it's
Thursday,
45
somewhere
minutes.
around rush hour,
Yeah.
Right,
the bridge will be
exactly.
closed, so everybody plan accordingly.
Thank you, Joanne. The next item on the agenda is advisory committees and reports. John, are you here to speak?
Yes, the Public
Public
Safety
Safety?
Committee Chair.
Thanks for being here this morning.
John Goggin, the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and I hadn't planned on being here this morning and speaking, but when I looked at your agenda on Friday, I saw Resolution 1928 about the FDOT and the recommendation for reconfiguring the pedestrian traffic and the road at the foot of the bridge on Matanza. I know for over a year we've been coming here and asking for input. We were told we would get input. And then Friday, I was quite surprised to see a recommendation that was going to be voted on today. My request is that you pull this from your agenda and refer it to the Public Safety Committee. We meet on Wednesday. I assure you we will bring this up. We've discussed it informally. The design that's there does not appear to be efficient to move traffic along. So my request is that you pull this agenda, refer it to the Public Safety Committee. We'll bring it up on Wednesday, and I'll get a report back to you before your next meeting.
Anita,
Yes.
maybe it would be a good time for Roger to state how it came to him so quickly and wound up on the agenda so quickly. I don't know, do you want to comment on that, Roger?
Was a bit of a surprise to
It
us,
was a
too.
surprise to us too, because as you know, we've been working with the
Yep.
county and it stopped
Yep.
and all of a sudden this showed up. So
Go
just so
ahead,
you know.
Roger.
Well, the short version is that FDOT is, as you know, is working on the entire corridor. And part of we met with their design team out there about a week or so ago. And they're basically, I don't want to say they're holding their designer. Designer's doing other things that they can do, but basically a decision about the foot of the bridge is on their critical path, and they're looking for a decision as soon as possible. That being said, I don't have a problem, with the request per se, but, since, due to the timeliness of it, but I do think that it's important that the council have some discussion today as well, because it is a very, very significant issue for the town.
I agree. So John, that would be my inclination, is for us to discuss it and then send it to you. And for you to
That's
talk about
fine.
it on Wednesday.
I-
Yeah,
I
because
just-
then we'll have double input and you'll have an idea what we think about it for your meeting.
Madam Mayor, one
Yes,
other
sir.
point. The other point is, with all appreciation of the hard work of the Public Safety Committee, I also wanted to get this on the agenda for the purposes of making sure the public was fully informed of
Yes,
this
absolutely.
issue, and that it was moving forward at a fairly expeditious manner, so all members of the community could weigh in on their thoughts about it.
Michelle, could we ask you to get Mr. Gog and the Public Safety Committee all that information on that, the drawing and whatever
We'll give
backup
them the
that we
agenda
have?
item.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, John.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Council Champ asked, the hours are that the bridge will be closed is 5:45 till 6:15 on Thursday evening.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have the Town Council regular meeting of September 23rd, 9 a.m., and the regular meeting of September 23rd, 5:01 p.m., which was the budget adoption. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as distributed or with any corrections?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? The motion carries unanimously. Next item is the consent agenda. We have an RFP for janitorial services for town facilities. May I have a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Shamp, seconded by Mrs. Hossafras. And any objection to that motion? Motion carries unanimously. The next item is a first public hearing, because as Rexanne had said, that short-term rentals is moving into the administrative agenda, so the first public hearing we'll hear is a second reading and public hearing of Ordinance 1912 on skimmers. This is Ordinance 1912. It's an ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, providing for automated teller machines and retail fuel pump security measures, establishing security measure requirements for owners and operators of non-monitored automatic teller machines and retail fuel pumps, providing for codification and scrivener's errors, conflicts, and severability, and providing for an effective date. Roger or John, do you have anything to add to this before we move on?
The only thing is that there is proof of publication, so it is properly before you for second reading it.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, this item
Yes,
has
sir.
not changed since the first reading. It's as you passed it on first reading.
Excellent. Okay, I will then open up the public hearing. Would anybody care to make comments on this? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Council, any questions or comments? If not,
Madam Chair, I would move approval of the ordinance as read.
I would just like to, oh, you want a second on that? Sorry.
you want to, somebody want to second that
second.
for a discussion? Okay, Joanne?
Just want to thank Council Member Butcher for bringing this issue forward, and I know a lot of people are affected by this. Our Community Development Director just got his hit this weekend, so at any rate, thank you, Bruce.
Okay, excellent. Any further discussion?
I
There's
would
a-
also echo those comments, thanking you, Bruce, and it'll be
I want to
forever,
echo also, Bruce.
echo those comments.
Excellent.
And it'll be forever known as the Butcher Doctrine.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so we have a motion and a second, And no further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody object? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next public hearing is, or,
Mayor, generally, it's a roll call vote when you adopt ordinances.
yes, you're absolutely right. That's a big snafu for me. The maker of the motion was Mr. Murphy. How do you vote?
Aye.
Rexanne,
Aye.
second. Joanne.
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
And Anita, aye. Thank you, Michelle. The next item is a town council direction on vacating the right-of-way public hearing schedule, weirdest thing ever. This is a motion to direct the town manager to set public hearings for 3 applications requesting the vacating of 3 separate sections of town right-of-way associated with the TPI Margaritaville project at the first available council meeting. Now, this has all been approved through our CPD process. Just for the public, this isn't like we're doing anything new or whatever. This was all discussed and vetted through the public hearing process. Jason, I'm going to turn that right to you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
so the town, notwithstanding that these decisions were all wrapped in the approval of the TPI project when the council approved that. However, we have a formal process within town for vacation of public rights-of-way. And this is the trigger for that process, so that staff can proceed to do the staff work and carry out the implementation pursuant to the town code. And with that, I'll just let Jason tell you the forthcoming steps that we'll be taking.
Sure. Well, there's steps that you have to decide, obviously, where the code requires you to tell us to go ahead and move forward with a couple processes. There's also a section of the code that allows you to essentially waive that process, which we're not recommending. However, there's kind of a middle ground that's available to you also, since, to your point, it's already been heard through 2 public hearings, or it's actually 3 with the LPA about the CPD, is the potential actually direct us to hold a public hearing for the review and adoption in 1 hearing instead of waiting the 30 days that takes us almost into 2020. Not sure that there's that extra advertising, that extra need for that, and that would be our recommendation. Sometime in November 18th would be an ideal date if you want to institute that option to you, since under the code you have that option and availability based on your previous findings.
November 18th would be the hearing and final adoption.
If you
Fine.
chose to
Okay.
invoke that option within the code that allows you to essentially waive 1 or both of those hearings. And we're asking to, for full transparency, to hold the public hearing, but to instruct us to advertise it for November 18th.
Roxanne?
I'm good with that.
Joanne, questions?
One question. There are no changes from the conditions of the CPD or the approval?
Correct. The
Okay.
only change that you'll see is on that, the 12 feet of right-of-way. That
Yep.
is, there's a 10 by 12 area that's being removed from that request that was held
For the-
before the LPA.
correct.
And that's for the traffic signal area related to Lee County. You already approved that agreement previous meeting.
Very good. Then I have no problem with having 1 hearing on November 18th for review and potential adoption.
We already have those legal descriptions and that modified, prepared, ready to go into those packets.
Ray, you have questions?
No, that sounds good to me.
Excuse me, gentleman in the back, we need to be quiet, please. You have no objections?
No.
Bruce, do you have any questions? No. Jason, I guess my biggest question with this, other than I spoke with John about the process is just awkward to me.
Correct.
I'm guessing that whenever all the years I've sat at this dais, we never did a vacation because I do not remember this process. But anyhow,
But it's strange for us too, because honestly, this hearing requirement is buried in the discussion of the code about the LPA process. So it all of a sudden in the middle of the paragraph switches to this process. So it is very awkward.
I'd ask that this somehow gets included in
Yes.
the glitches that need to be reviewed and amended because that just doesn't make any sense.
That has come
But
to our
my
top of
bigger
our list too.
question
Yes.
is, when I looked at the timeline, the LPA's hearing was in August of 2018. Why an entire year to come back to us? More than a year.
Legal challenges.
So for the whole period of time during The legal challenges, nothing has taken place?
Well, don't forget that the decision to hold up this till after the legal challenge was completed was a decision by TPI as well as the town that it would be best not to do something that theoretically, although we felt there was a very, very small chance we would have to undo.
And if I may, frankly, we've gone through the review of their development order and their building permits, and we're in that process, and so that helps fully paint that picture. So we're at that point now where it all needs to come together.
The other thing, Madam Mayor, was we had to finalize the matters that the council heard and approved at your last meeting dealing with the county as well.
Okay. So I guess my my future concern would be, do we have, I would ask for some sort of schedule. Probably the number one question I get asked, and maybe everybody gets asked this, is what's going on there? What's going on there? And much like Bruce's desire for a map of the boulevard and what's going on there, I think it'd be great to have a map, a timeline, something that says, here's what's happening with this major project that's going to impact everybody. Here's the town's timeline or TPI's timeline. John's nodding, so he's hearing this. So that maybe it's something that's on our website, but it's information that's readily accessible. We can direct people to it. It is, I'd just like to know, we discussed it during the hearing, that there's nothing impeding the forward motion here. Because,
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir?
Just to be clear, nothing is impeding the forward motion of this project. We are working extremely well together to make sure that all TPI's deadlines that they communicate to the staff are met. With regard to the status of the project, as you may recall, TPI had been submitting monthly updates to town council as part of the MP meetings. That might have slowed down a little bit due to the no change in status, due to the lawsuit taking so much time to be completed, but I'm sure that Mr. Gutierrez and the rest of the TPI team will pick that up immediately now that the project is moving forward expeditiously.
Thank you for those assurances. Excellent.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
Motion to direct the town manager to set a final public hearing for the 3 applications requesting the vacating of 3 separate sections of town right-of-way associated with the TPI Margaretville project for the November 18th town council meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
And Madam Mayor, just to restate, that'll be the one and final, unless you continue it at that date.
Yes, sir. Let me just ask a procedural question. This actually, it's under public hearings, but is this a public hearing to have a public hearing? Do I need to open public comment is my question.
I would suggest that you take public comment if there is any.
Ladies, if you would please remove your motions for a moment, and let me just see if there's any public comment.
Removed.
Is there any public comment? We'll open the public comment to this. Anything? Okay, thank you very much. Public comment is closed. Go ahead again, Joanne. Thank you.
Motion to direct the town manager to set a final public hearing for 3 applications requesting the vacating of 3 separate sections of town right-of-way associated with the TPI Margaretville project for November 18th town council meeting.
Second.
There's a motion by Joanne Shamp and seconded by Rexanne Hossafras. Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Thank you very much. The motion carries unanimously. Next item, our public hearing, is for 90 Ibis Street. This is a screen enclosure setback variance. It's to approve the 90 Ibis Street screen enclosure setback variance, request of 5.5 feet to allow a 2-foot side setback along the southwest side, and to allow the screen enclosure to be rebuilt in the same location, less than 1 foot in front of the house. John, for advertising purposes?
Yes,
And ex parte?
it's quasi-judicial, so let's swear in the witnesses first. The following item
following item on the agenda that you're going to be considering is a quasi-judicial item. So all those who are going to give testimony here this morning, can you please stand and raise your hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
The witnesses have been sworn. At this point in time, Madam Mayor, would it be appropriate for any council member to disclose any ex parte communications
Thank
you
you,
may have
John.
had?
Bruce, anything?
I did a drive-by.
Okay, Ray?
None.
Rexanne?
I was present at the LPA hearing when they discussed this and drove by.
Thank you. Joanne?
Site visit.
Okay, and I have nothing. Thank you. We'll proceed. Sarah?
Good morning, Sarah Probst.
Good morning.
I noticed that the resolution was not in the packet, so I have printed off copies of the resolution.
Thank you very much.
I will hand them to Michelle to pass through.
Sarah, just since you're up, why don't you hand them all to us? Thank you. Thanks very much, Sarah. Go ahead.
Good morning, Sarah Probst with Community Development. The applicant, White Aluminum, is seeking a setback variance on behalf of the owners for 90 Ibis Street, the Urbac Trust. The variance request is for the residential pool and screen enclosure 7.5-foot side setback and front setback found in section 341174 D1C and 341174B to allow a pool and screen enclosure 2 feet from the side property line and slightly forward of the house, but still 25 feet from the right-of-way. The applicant needs to expand the pool deck in order to allow wheelchair access around the pool. The deck expansion would be permitted by right. However, the screen enclosure expansion requires a variance. Staff has received several phone calls. Callers have indicated they have no concerns. Staff recommended at the LPA hearing that they recommend approval, and LPA concurred. The applicant is also here.
Thank you, Sarah.
Daughter, I'm Karen. I'm
Hold on,
sorry.
No, you're good, you're good. Any questions for Sarah, council? Okay. Ma'am, if you'll just say your name for the record.
I'm Karen Brewer, so I'm her
Hi, Karen.
daughter.
Okay.
Annette Urbeck lives there. She would love to have the variance because she is getting older and she can swim and move about. Her hips and her knees are not good. So we would love to
Well,
have it
whose
passed.
are?
Well,
You know.
I know that, but when you're 83, it gets really bad.
Yes.
It's sad. It's very, yes.
Well.
So I'm just here to say, yes, I'd like it,
Well.
hopefully it goes through.
Thank you very much.
All
We
right.
appreciate it. Let's see if anybody has a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Anybody have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. Okay, so, council, comments? A motion?
I have a comment,
Go ahead, Bruce.
question. Sarah? So the tennis court that's next door to this property, what is that zoned for? Is it,
I believe it's multifamily. It's part of the condominium across the street.
so if they wanted to build something there in the future, can they, it doesn't have to be a tennis court, they can put a building there? A house, residence, apartments?
I believe that that's part of a master concept, so they would probably have to revise that. I can look that information up, though.
I'm just curious, because if you're allowing that screen to be a foot next to somebody's house in the future, is that a good thing or not? Acted like it was a tennis court, like it's going to be a tennis court forever, but is it?
I don't know. Okay.
Well, I could tell you nothing is anything forever, no, but I think the important.
Thanks for that assurance, Roger.
But I do believe this is purely one of these issues that, we have to deal with the matter that's before us and look at the merits and, to the extent that the folks downstream may decide to change that tennis court to something else. They had an opportunity to be here today and to, state their concerns.
The adjoining properties were noticed? Thank you.
Go ahead, Ray.
Sarah, those phone calls that came in support of were they immediate neighbors? and so
They
forth?
were from across the street, most of them. One of them, I'm not sure where it was, but it was within the 500 feet, obviously. But all of them called just to ask what it was, and once I explained it, they were all comfortable with it.
When you say across the street, you mean across the street on Ibis or across the Estero Boulevard?
Across the Estero Boulevard.
Oh, so those would be the owners of those, of that tennis court, the condominium. So
Yes.
they don't have a problem, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Roxanne, any questions?
No.
Joanne, any questions? May I have a motion, please?
I would move approval of the,
You have to do it in the fancy way.
Oh,
Go
do
ahead,
I?
John?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know that the applicant spoke, but it is a public hearing, so.
And I apologize for that, too. I'm off my game. So, public comment? Anybody care for some public comment on this fantastic issue of 90 Ibis Street? No? All right, no public comment. And now, a motion and a second, please.
A motion to approve Resolution 19-29 for variance 20190052, 90 Ibis Street Pool Enclosure Setback to include the determinations, recommended findings, conclusions, and condition of approval as presented within the resolution.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Shamp and seconded by Councilmember Hassafras. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Let's have a roll call vote, just for kicks, in case I'm supposed to do it. Joanne?
Aye.
Roxanne?
Aye.
Ray?
aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
And I'm aye. So tell your mother to enjoy her pool, and we hope her hips and knees get better. Okay? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, we move into the administrative agenda. And the first item is the Resolution 1928, Matanzas Bridge Lane reconfiguration. So this is just for discussion purposes here. As you heard Mr. Goggins speak, perhaps the Public Safety Task Force will weigh in on this. This came up very quickly, but it's something we've all been talking about. So, Roger, you want to say anything to begin with? Or Joanne, you want to lead this since you were actually working with Commissioner Kiker on this?
Yeah, I'm going to let Roger go first.
By way of introduction, so Madam Mayor, you're correct. This initially was something that Commissioner Kiker had shared a concept with us, and that concept got into the public domain. We then reacted to it with, I believe it was 4 or 5 alternatives that got compressed down into one alternative. That was provided to the county for their consideration, and approximately a week ago, they submitted to us their version of that alternative. And I thought it was extremely important to get the matter before the council and the public for everybody's review and input. As in most intersections or exchanges that have conflicting issues, you generally have to, sacrifice one element for another. It's very hard to accommodate everything. So the underlying issue here is, do you maintain safety for the pedestrians but yet prioritize vehicular flow? Or do you allow the pedestrians to dictate breaks in traffic? So that's a challenge. You're all familiar with the location, perhaps much more familiar than I am. And we think it's important for you to discuss it from a sort of higher level of what the goals of any changes that are made need to be, as well as any ideas that you like or dislike from what's been presented to you, as well as any ideas you have for further enhancements.
Roger, just to be clear, I'd just like to let everyone know that our packet page 269 which says Seafair's alternative, let's call this the Kiker Plan, because that was the original idea, correct?
I'm
Now,
turning there now, yes, I believe you're correct.
The others that we have on page 270 and 271 of our packet, is there a possibility to put these up on the screen, Michelle? Is that possible? Just so people could see this, because this is it's a pretty big deal. So the county, or the FDOT proposal is page 271.
No,
Nope.
none of these are FDOT's proposals. This is this is the county's proposal.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I meant, the county's proposal.
And the town's proposal, and then an attempt by Lee County to reconcile those.
Okay, so the county's proposal is the 271 page, the beach alternative 5R, is that correct? And then the town's alternative is, or is it beach, just tell me which one is which there.
Okay, hang on, I'm trying to get there. My book is not cooperating with me, pages are stuck together. Okay, I think I'm here. Okay, so going from back to front.
The first one is obvious,
Right.
which Michelle has on the screen right now.
Right, the first one on page 269 is the original Kiker proposal.
Correct. Which is what's
Okay,
showing on the
page
screen.
270 was the town's attempt to refine the
Okay, so this
county's
is the town
proposal. That's on 269. So, and then 271 is the county's attempt to reconcile page 269 and 270.
Okay,
And
perfect.
then last but not least, Madam Mayor, members
Yes,
of
sir.
council, due to the agenda timing, our consultant who helped us develop our proposal had some comments about the county's latest proposal on 271. That was distributed to you by email. Those comments were primarily technical. Such as questioning mast arm location and length, et cetera. So it's not really as much as the practical application of pedestrian and vehicular movements, but you have it before you as part of your discussion if you wish to get into those details.
Thank you. Okay, Joanne, so now I'll come to you because you were working with Commissioner Kiker on this.
Yeah, and it changed a lot. And of course, this is so important because this is our one big opportunity that we've been, you
Absolutely.
guys know better than I, you've been waiting for 22 years, where all the property is available to do these things. So I have some concerns, and I think the Safety Committee can address them better than I can, but just the multitude of crosswalks going on there and the timing of these traffic lights is going to be
Could you
critical.
hold on one second? Michelle, do you have a copy of this you could give to John? He could make some notes for his meeting on Wednesday. He could have your copy. John, would you come get this? I just want you to be able to make some notes so you've got something, I mean, not that I think you will forget this. You need a pen? You got one? Okay. I know. Thank you.
So
Thank
I
you,
mean,
Roger. Go ahead.
it seems that it will be critical that we have signals that are synchronized and truly monitored the way that the county states that they will be daily, hourly, by minute monitoring of these things and synchronized. Unfortunately, traffic will always have to take, traffic flow has to take a second priority to pedestrian or bicycle safety when you have such a congested area. So there are limits on how much improvement we can do. That being said, a couple things that I noticed that had been discussed and aren't reflected here was the concept that if you look along Seafarers, the edge of Seafarers, you know where the little tram stop is on the Seafarers side.
Which plan are you looking at?
It doesn't matter, actually, whichever
Okay.
one.
Okay.
They all have sort of a little tram stop there,
Yes.
you'll notice.
Right.
And from there, as you go from there toward toward the intersection, okay? So moving up. There was some discussion about not continuing that sidewalk because it only encourages more people to cross at the big intersection. If the sidewalk is not continued there, it directs them to a different cross area. So I throw that out in comment for discussion. Another thing that occurred to me is that, you know, we own Center Street, and we've always talked about opening or not opening it, and the angle is so severe. But you wonder if using Center Street, if the bikes come over the bridge and can turn right down Center Street and even have some bike racks there, if that might be a good use of some of that small area on Center Street and keeping the bikes out of that whole crossing area, or directing them then where they would go down to the old San Carlos crossing area. It may just be more confusing. I'm passing that. I guess a disappointment I have with the design is it's a two-edged sword. This design, of course, leaves a lot of property at Seafarers for other potential public use, which would be good, but it also doesn't seem to provide for a great identifying feature for the town. You know, we talked about having it be an entry feature, and I'm not sure that I feel that the design fully holds that as compared to the initial design that had a little more, like a lot more green space. Perhaps there's some medium accommodation right there. I guess that would be my overall comments. I wish that there was a way to eliminate all that pedestrian action there, and not being an engineer, I'm not sure how you accomplish that. So that's it for me.
Roxanne?
Having served on the Public Safety Committee previously, I learned some vernacular, and that is all those little pedestrian triangle or diamonds that you're seeing there, we refer to them as RRFBs. So if I use that word, I want you to know that's rectangular rapid flashing beacon. And the thing that the county reinforced over and over to us when I was on the Public Safety Committee is that if you have too many of those, people start to ignore them.
That's right.
And then they present us with a plan with 5 of them right next to each other practically. So the very things that they kept telling us when we wanted to put them in different locations, no, you can't use them at Publix because that's too close to another one. They don't seem to be following their own advice. Having said that, the one that I'm most concerned about, if you're looking at page 270, you'll notice there is a square of those diamond shapes. The upper left-hand corner one allows people to cross at what doesn't appear to be a full crosswalk. It's just a little dotted line and takes them onto a landscape median when there's a crosswalk just feet away. So I have no idea why that upper left RRFB is there. The upper left-hand corner one. This one right here.
Oh, this.
The line goes down.
Oh, yes.
here.
Okay, yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
It
to
doesn't
you.
make any sense that you have an RRFB there. The upper left-hand corner one, the 4 of them in the plan kind of form a square.
Yeah.
The upper left-hand corner one,
Behind the beach shop,
right.
well,
behind Wynn's.
the picture is there, but
Yeah,
the
on
lines
Center
are,
Street,
the
basically.
lines are hard to see on this copy. I printed another copy of it where the lines actually go down to that little kind of pie-shaped green area.
Exactly.
And there is no real crosswalk there. It's just a little dotted line. It's a bad place for people to be crossing.
Worst possible place.
And since we don't want to have, they told us over and over again they didn't want so many RRFBs close together. I think that would be at least the first one I would eliminate.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
And on the copy, it's very difficult to see. The picture is of the little pedestrian is quite far away from where they're actually putting it. It's where there's just a series of little dotted lines between 2 green blobs, which it just doesn't make any sense to me that be there. It's a bad place for pedestrians to be crossing. And Having said that, tacking on to what Joanne said, I share her concerns, and if you follow the right-hand lane going toward the bridge as if you were exiting the island, you're along that piece of property there. I don't see any reason why we don't have more room for the trolley to completely pull off the road there because there is property available, and that would keep traffic from backing up. So I don't know why they're saving that piece of property when there is something very useful that could go there. And that's off the,
What was your last comment?
The
If you-
complete trolley pull-off, as in, for example, if you compare the Kiker alternative to the beach, the town's alternative, or even the county's alternative, in the original alternative, there's a complete trolley pull-off. And in both of the preceding, following ones, there really isn't.
and there's room for it. No,
Well,
there's just a right-hand turn lane there.
Yeah, it's just kind of a stop.
Yeah, but there's a trolley stop before the right turn lane.
Right.
But it's part of the right-hand turn lane.
Well, after you get past the trolley stop, it's the right turn lane.
There's property there available. The trolley could pull completely off the road. I don't see any reason why we're not using that property I mean, though, if, I've said my piece.
Yeah, I got it.
Anything else, Roxanne?
Not for right now, thank you.
Do you mind, I forgot one point that I was going to make, and it was on the, let's see, they refer to it as page 271.
That's
Where
the counties.
Right. Mine shows a little clearer. I'll hold it up. Where you have these two crosswalks, sort of make a Y to this,
Yes.
right near this island. I'm not sure why you need all of those, because all of these things could feed to the island and only have one crosswalk somewhere. So that, at a minimum, it seems like you go down to one, although I'd rather not have one there at all.
Okay. Ray, you have any comments?
Who is it exactly who will give us recommendations on that entry feature there, on that little sliver of property?
I think would be a combination of us sort of.
Our brand.
Yeah, the branding company, but be a conversation between the town and ultimately the county for what was going to happen there. And if you remember back, I'm trying to think, it was, Joanne, correct me if I'm wrong, at one of the work sessions, we actually talked about, what would happen specifically in the, let's call it, I'm going to call it the part right there at on Center Street that's just recently been landscaped, and Seafarers, and the parcel that the town ultimately will own, Ocean Jewels parcel. There was just so much opportunity there for a gateway entrance to the island, a landing,
We're holding that in our back pocket for a little while.
Well, I think it needs to be loud and clear out on the table to start with, because otherwise it's going to get ignored. But anyway, that's the answer
Okay,
there.
I just wanted to know what the procedure was with that. And I'll be anxious to hear what the Public Safety Committee comes back with after
Okay,
getting a bite of this.
Bruce?
Glad we're just talking about it, not voting on it, because I think this is ridiculous to have this little bit of time and lack of input from the county to have a discussion with them. And there's not very much about this I really like.
Do you mind if I interject just one point? It's true, we were working on it, and then it stopped with the commissioner's illness and whatever. And then we heard rumor that they weren't going to do it for 2 years. So I just want to say thank you. We had the conversation with new Commissioner Sandelli, and it is here.
And
We
it's here.
asked for it to be here. So I don't want anybody to think that we're not glad to have this conversation right now. But that being said, yeah, today, to do it in one day, not so much, but thank you so much for bringing this forward right now. So, thank you. Sorry, Bruce.
But I agree with you, Bruce.
I didn't want to bite the hand of the
Who I'd
commissioner
like
who
to,
really
exactly, who
sent
I'd
it
like to be
forward.
in the room for our follow-up discussion after the Public Safety Task Force is Commissioner Sandelli and some representatives from Lee County that will be making this decision, so we could have a little bit of a back and forth and clarify anything that may be,
Yeah, I'll just reflect back to years ago when Lee County came to the town and they sat right here, only this didn't look the same then. And they talked about redoing Estero Boulevard. And Larry Kiker was the commissioner, and he was leading the discussion, and the town council sat there at a table, and they said zero, said nothing, offered no improvements, no concerns, nothing. And I was sitting right there, and I was outraged. And I'm not outraged about this. I'm glad they're doing it, as Joanne says, but let's have some discussion and understand it, because this looks like spaghetti to me with all these crosswalks going here and there. And what we're trying to do something on Old San Carlos Boulevard with a light, and then you got a crosswalk 50 feet from that, or 50 yards. Makes no sense. The state said in front of that.
Well, remember, the
Westwards-
50-yard crosswalk is a town suggestion, not a county suggestion. That's on page 270.
Well, the county's one is right there at the intersection. Well,
Yeah.
fine. Anyhow, regardless whose it is, we're trying to put a signal there at Old San Carlos. The state said at one time that in front of the trinket shop there, Wynn's, I think it is, that they thought we
Trinket
should.
shop. I can't wait to tell Tim that.
Yeah.
It's a little trinket shop. Tim, did you hear it?
So they were suggesting to move those parking spots out of there and make 2 lanes there, which I think makes more sense, so that that traffic can flow right onto Old San Carlos and not back up to the bridge. So if we don't have that as a basis to start with, then why are we even looking at this? So are we going to do that, or are we not going to do that? And if you do that, then that destroys all this stuff. These median strips that they have sods and shrubs in, are these going to be curb median strips? Are they street level? What are they? Does anybody know?
I believe in the composite ones, all of them are raised except for the ones coming off the bridge. If you
So
look- if you
what
look-
happened to all this big hoopla that we have to have lanes for emergency vehicles if you have curb median strips right there in the middle? I don't understand that.
Well, the ones with landscaping would be curb, so that's a good indicator. I don't know about that prior discussion about third lane for emergency vehicles.
Well, that was a whole basis, the whole premise of the Estero Boulevard construction was the fire department said we have to have access, we have to have a third lane, which, anyhow. So we ought to talk to them. Quite frankly, I think some of that is overdone. You could put soft curbs on the side, you can pull up on the sidewalk, but is it soft curbs or not? Is it high curbs? Is it 9-inch curbs? Are we going to put handrails up so that people will not be meandering or across here? I'm big on that. I don't see anything about that. What kind of lighting we're going to put in there for these pedestrian crosswalks? I don't know, I could go on and on and on, but we need to have a legitimate, if we're voting for this and saying go ahead, I want to have a complete, thorough understanding. And I'm no traffic engineer, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express one time, and I've got plenty of opinions,
Okay,
so.
okay. I agree completely with the comments about potential lost opportunity if we do not look at this as a gateway, a landing, an entrance, a something. You know, the plan that has the most potential for that visually is Commissioner Kiker's to start with. However, so I'm just going to comment what I like and dislike about all of them. So on what I'm going to call the Kiker plan, I love the amount of green space that I see being a beautiful entrance to our community. I dislike enormously any pedestrian activity in what, in my opinion, for 30-some years of being in Times Square, is the most dangerous curve on the island other than the Catholic Church, and that's right there at the base of the bridge, where I can't tell you how many times the West Coast Surf Shop, the Tiki store, all of those have been crashed into because a truck or a car or whomever, fortunately, no fatalities, but that's by the grace of God. So that, people coming over that bridge, making that swoop around, to have any pedestrian activity right there, I think is just a very, very bad move. I would take all pedestrians out of that zone. Why we're encouraging people to cross there, I don't get at all. That should be a thoroughfare. That should be just cars. When I see people try and cross there, it makes me crazy. So I also love on the Kiker plan the fact that a bus, a trolley, the tram, whatever, literally has refuge, and so do the people in what is now the Seafarers property. That it's coming off, like Joanne said, it's literally off the road and then comes back into the road. What I wish would happen on the Kiker plan that happens on the town plan is that there is a lane over the bridge for that trolley to come back onto, and they don't have to merge terribly into that one back. But anyway, okay, so that's the Kiker plan. The county plan is, to me, the most lackluster of all. And what I worry about this, and with all due respect, I do like the fact, I'm going to start with what I like. I do like the fact that the Crescent Beach Park has the pull-off that I think the Seafarers ought to also have. I would like all that pedestrian activity to either funnel right there where on the county plan they have a crosswalk, or down to where there's going to be a traffic light and a crosswalk and a crossover where the new Margaritaville development is. I'd like them to go all the way down there and then come into, go to the beach, go to Times Square, go wherever they're going. That's what I like about the county plan. What I like about the town plan is this lane that's been created that goes over the bridge and doesn't force people down Fifth. I think that's a very good design, but again, I dislike immensely these crosswalks, and as Roxanne pointed out, all these flashing lights. It would just be, it will eliminate the whole idea of a beautiful gateway, and it'll turn into, oh, what's happening here again? I don't like those at all. What I've heard from everybody is that, or there is at least to me a consensus about there being too many of these flashers, and that's primarily on the town's plan. Stop me if I say something that you disagree with, just to sort of consolidate. Does anybody else agree that pedestrians should be kept out of the base of the bridge as much as possible?
Absolutely.
It's just crazy to even
It's like we
think about putting them there.
concentrated them instead of taking them away.
Exactly, take them out of there. A complete trolley pull-off at Seafarers and Crescent Beach.
That would be ideal.
That this should be Joanne and I had a conversation one day when people were calling this a racetrack, the Kiker plan, and Joanne came up with this word, the landing, which I really liked. Commissioner Kiker didn't like it, but I really liked it. So gateway, landing, people need to have that visual in their head as they plan this. The pedestrian impediments that Bruce talked about, whether that's bougainvillea, I remember Summer saying, remember this, Roxanne, that she would jump over it. It was so funny.
She's gotten older, though.
She has gotten older.
She might not be able to
It
jump
might
so
be.
high.
That might be.
Suggested that a long time.
Yeah.
Long time before that.
Yeah.
bougainvillea or Spanish bayonet.
But something that that isn't, I'm not a fan of railing, but I am a fan of
Orange.
it's the Spaniard in me. Something that would impede or funnel pedestrian movement without, that's aesthetically pleasing, because it all goes back to this being the gateway to the island. And lighting. Lighting is a huge issue here because there is so much pedestrian activity, and there will be more as Margaritaville is built, as other properties here continue to improve. There will be more pedestrian activity. So lighting is a big deal. And ultimately, if the Public Safety Task Force is meeting on Wednesday, I think that their comments should be reflected in a work session or a section of our meeting at the next possible meeting. I think Commissioner Sandelli should be here so he understands very clearly, and I'm going to call him afterwards to ask him to listen to this section of the meeting. And whomever at the county is going to be making these decisions, or our technical people, Roger, they all need to be here for this. Because there's way too much opportunity for coconut telegraph, telephone line, whatever game you want to call it, for misinterpretation here. And this is just too important, like Joanne said, and everybody has said. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do this right, and it should be done right. They've spent $80 million on the boulevard, and this should not be a scrimp in any way. Planning, landscaping, and the town participates, whatever, but this is super important. Is there anything that I sort of missed as a high point? What was that?
So what's the county going to do with their land?
Okay, that's another good one. Future of seafarers.
Because that, to me, is important as to what you end up doing with this street configuration. Because really, there shouldn't be a lot of need to go from that side of Estero, the bay side, over, because there's just not that much there.
Well, you're talking about just seafarers, because Margaritaville is going to be there.
Yeah, but Margaritaville is going to have the walkover and a crosswalk there at that intersection that's going to have a light at it.
Yep.
So I don't understand who's going to be coming over there.
Well, the only, what I see happening in a practical matter, I think they're coming from the lighthouse. And they're coming from the lighthouse, and they're taking their quickest route into Times Square. And these people are literally walking across I've seen families, whole families, run across that intersection. I think, what in God's name are you doing? Anyway, I think it's coming.
You have people coming over the bridge and people coming from the lighthouse, true. So they have to be accommodated in some under.
Okay, so the future of seafarers. Rex, what were you going to add?
I'm sorry to jump in, but I just noticed something that I had missed previously. We have a town-owned, is my understanding, trolley pickup coming the other direction when you come off the bridge, right there by the sandal factory. And it appears to be gone on these maps.
Oh, well, I didn't even notice that, but surely that's not gone. That's the number one trolley pickup.
It just says 10-foot wide concrete sidewalk, if I'm looking at the right place.
Okay, so let's put that back in. Trolley stop.
No, that's there. That's there.
It's there.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's on the other side.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. Move your pencil to the right a little bit.
Here.
Yeah.
It's right here, but it's not marked per se.
Yeah, a little more.
Well, if it's
Oh,
not
I see
marked,
it.
then I'm worried that they're
Yeah.
removing it.
Yeah.
A trolley stop should be marked.
That
so-
general area, yeah.
And I always thought that was the county since it was the trolley, but I remember I was taught earlier on in my time on council, when we asked for it to be fixed, they told us it belonged to us. So we ended up fixing it.
Okay. Is there anything else? Roger?
Madam Mayor, just so you understand that, at the end of the day, the improvements that go in to this intersection are going to be ultimately based on the state uniform traffic manual. So that's going to drive a lot of these engineering decisions.
thought of that's just terrifying, because state uniform traffic manual to me says it's going to end up being worse than this one.
Well,
Hopefully, somebody at the state understands the delicacies and the intricacies of what this provides to enhance pedestrian traffic and the aesthetics of the town of Fort Myers Beach. And we'll make that abundantly clear to them.
so the reason I mention that is because whenever we have this meeting with everybody in the room, so to speak, you're going to hear a lot of that. So just so you're not ill-prepared.
Go ahead.
Okay. The other thing is, let's remember this. This is not in the Estero Boulevard project per se. This is sort of an add-on concept that Commissioner Kiker was advocating for. So it's extremely timely because of the work that FDOT is doing concurrently on the bridge and beyond. So we will try to let the Public Safety Committee do its work and get everybody back together. It seems like it's going to be in November, based on my understanding of some council absences that are forthcoming. And hopefully be able to reach some form of consensus to send back for the county to put it on paper and forward to FDOT.
So, John, would you, once you have your meeting, if you could consolidate the thoughts of the public safety and forward them on to the council, and then I'll forward them on to Commissioner Sandelli, and that way he'll be totally, I'll even ask him to watch the public safety. The public safety, is it recorded? How does the public safety meetings?
It's recorded.
Okay, so I'll ask him to watch that as well, just so he's totally clued in here. Okay, anything else somebody want to add to the pile before we move on? And could we make this a priority for our first meeting in November? Oh, wait, when is our first meeting in November? Oh, I'm gone the first 2 meetings of November. Okay, we'll look at the calendar at the end when we're looking at the other calendar. Could we take a 5-minute break at this point before we move on to the next item? Sure. Okay, thank you. Amy, 5-minute break. Go ahead, Amy. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll reconvene the meeting. Next item on the agenda, under administrative agenda, is item B, and it is a lien mitigation for 2633 Estero Boulevard, CE 16-0350. Mr. Herron? Any comments?
No, as you all are aware, under the code, it is the town council that has the right and responsibility to consider lien mitigation requests. It originally is reviewed by the town manager, who provides staff report. I think that the standard percentage that the staff recommends reduction is, I think, 33%.
That's right.
Yeah. Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
this is Jim. It says, excuse me, as the blue sheet reflects, staff does not generally recommend reductions unless the staff made a technical mistake or contributed to the delay that's spelled out in the blue sheet. However, for consistency's sake, if there's a hardship, we recommend a third. But that's up to you based on the facts of the situation. You've heard from the applicant's attorney during public comment. You have the facts of the case. You will note that the number that that was stated during the public comment was higher than the number that is actually before you for consideration in terms of the amount of the lien. So staff is available, I guess, to answer any questions you have, if you have additional questions at this point.
Are there additional liens? Is that why the gentleman mentioned, he said 58,000, and what's before us is actually 9,450?
As far as we know, that they make the application, they requested us to review a particular code case and lien, and that's what we did.
Okay. Questions from the council? Anybody have anything on this? Bruce?
I would like a complete and understanding of the timeline.
Timeline's very confusing on this.
It is, why, and I think there's bad dates in the panel or the documents that we've received. The attorney, when he was speaking, he started throwing out dates that were conflicting a little bit as well, I think. I don't understand. Let's see, where is it? On page 280, it says, conclusion of law. Respondent, by reason of the foregoing facts, was in violation of town code on March 2nd, 2018, came into compliance with the order of enforcement dated January 25, 2019. Fines accrued from January 25, 2019 into March 2nd, 2018. Well, that's going backwards. So, I don't understand. Any of the
Mayor?
dates.
No, sir, you
Okay.
just, if somebody's got a question for you, we'll see. Thank you.
Councilman?
Yes, sir.
I believe that's a typographical error.
That's fine, but that still doesn't clear up my confusion. What is the dates? I don't know the dates. This is a concern I've always had with these things, that we don't have a nice little simple timeline to understand what's going on.
The date for compliance was March 2nd, 2018. The property did not come into compliance until January 25th, 2019. As a result, the special magistrate determined in paragraph C2 and certified a fine in the amount of $57,925, and that's the amount of the accrued fine.
That's not what it says on the blue sheet.
As the manager indicated, that's, the blue sheet is processed based upon what the applicant provides.
And just to Bruce's comment about the dates, on the very first page, 274, it talks about February of 2017, and March of 2017, and April of 2017. So I'm as confused as he is. Bruce, anything else?
Well, I can't say anything because somebody gets very specific with all the dates and the actions.
Again, if I may, if you go to page 276, and they're highlighted as those dates in 2017 are when the violation occurred, when the original hearing took place, and the date of the enforcement order.
Well, the attorney for the, I guess, defendant, said that, the applicant, okay, said that they were trying to get permits during the process time when the code violation was issued. Is that true or not?
So let's rewind this for a second.
Perfect.
My microphone is down, there we go. According to the staff report, which is what I'm going by, okay, the staff is reporting that the violation remained uncorrected in terms of the lien application for 63 days, okay? From February 10th, 2017 to April 13th, 2017. That fine amount in its entirety, okay, for 63 days at $150 is $9,450. If you decided to recognize a hardship and reduce that amount by a third, it would be you would remove $3,150, leaving an amount due of $6,300. So those are the numbers I would recommend that you work with. So either suggest that the applicant pay the entire $9,450 or reduce it to a lesser amount.
I'm looking at the magistrate's order, which is the legal document finding $57,000, $57,925.
Page 280 in the packet.
That's a legal document that says there's $57,000. And then the form that we have people fill out to ask for the lien reduction doesn't appear to have any place on it where they ask how much they want it reduced, what the amount of the lien is.
Just 100,000, it's 100%.
100%. But I mean,
Do you
that's a
have any
big difference
comment?
between 9,000 and 57,000.
I agree that there's a big difference. And unfortunately, Daphne's daughter got married, so she's not here. But I will tell you that, at this point, you can either continue the matter till when she is here or accept her staff report, which I did, which puts $9,000 and change on the table. But that's up to you all. Or you can go back to the larger number and work your way from there. You have the right to make it zero, irrespective of what the amount is stated by the magistrate or stated by staff. You can go anywhere in between. So you can stay at the higher number, work your way down from there, or not work your way down from there, or take what's on the blue sheet, or a lesser amount, whatever you think
That
is
puts us in a
appropriate.
terrible position.
Well, I don't think so. I think that we're somewhat in agreement with the applicant that $58,000 is not appropriate here for the reason stated that we believe that their ability to have come into compliance is not the entire period covered in the magistrate's order, but only 63 days. That we would attribute to them. So therefore, that's why we're saying that we would suggest that the lien amount be associated with those 63 days rather than the longer period of time.
Joanne, you have any comments?
Well, my understanding, was indeed that they were reducing that amount down to the $9,450. And then when I looked at that, I'm not one to reduce fees, as you know, but I looked at this, and in the 3 days. The applicant took 34 days to apply. So at $150 a day, that was $5,100. But then the town took the extra time to turn the permit around. And at some point you say, well, how long should that permit take? So if you say the permit should have taken 5 days when you're trying to come into a compliance, that's 5 days at $150 would be $750, or 10 days, what's a reasonable time? 10 days at $150? So let's say the town turns it around in five days, that would be $750. So to me, it would be $5,100 plus $750, and, that would come to $5,850. That would be my rationale for doing this, and that would take care of, clear everything off for the property owner.
I would have to disagree. If you do a property search on this property, a lien is going to show up in the amount of $57,925. Right, John?
Yes, ma'am.
And how does that lien get removed? Does it not get removed by this action?
Yes, it does. If you were, whatever amount that you agree to reduce the fine to and the property owner pays, then the city, the town would execute a release of lien upon payment of whatever that amount is.
But we would be reducing the amount from 9,000 to 3,000 or whatever, not 57,000. The numbers wouldn't, if I were doing this title search and the numbers didn't line up, I'd throw a big red flag on it at a property sale.
Depending on, or irrespective of the amount that you all agree to reduce it to, based upon the staff recommendation, based upon the presentation by the property owner's representative, whatever that amount is, will be agreed to, and an order or a resolution, whatever, will be provided to the property owner. Assuming they agree with it, they pay it. The lien release will simply say that the lien recorded at page blank
It's been satisfied.
has been satisfied and is hereby released.
There's one
And
additional.
whatever the amount of that document states.
There's just one additional thing. When you decide to, if you decide to reduce a lien, the applicant has a window of time to pay it. If it goes unpaid within that window of time, I believe it's 30 days, then the mitigation amount goes away and the original amount stays. So they have a window after your decision today to pay that. If they do, the lien gets removed, as John says. Otherwise, it remains at the original amount.
Which shows to be 57,000.
That's what's currently on the books.
So what I'm suggesting is, I think this needs to go back on the magistrate's docket for a corrected entry. I did them all the time as a magistrate. I made mistakes, I went back and I did a corrected entry. So it would not be fair if, say, for example, we reduced this from $9,000 to $6,000 and then they didn't pay within 30 days, that their lien would then jump back up to $57,000.
But I need to defer to, don't we need to defer to what our town attorney is saying is current protocol for this?
Well, again, Mayor and members of the council, if this council decides to reduce the lien to whatever amount, and the property owner agrees to it and he pays it, we will then record a satisfaction of lien that, again, says the debt has been satisfied at whatever amount that you all have specified, and as a result, the lien recorded at
Got it. In other words, do
Yeah.
whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Bruce, I understand what Roxanne is saying, and she's looking after the property owner. Bruce, any other comments? Or Ray, you got anything on this? This is your area.
I appreciate Roxanne's concern, but the property owner is being looked after by his own attorney, and I think they'll be satisfied with some sort of resolution here today. I'm of a mind to agree with Joanne's rationale of whatever that 5,700 or whatever that.
5850.
5850
If
amount
that's
was.
5 days of town time.
That's even a
or-
little bit better than they're asking for, and that's fine with me.
Bruce, do you have anything else?
Other than to say the property sure looks better than it did a few years ago. Took a long time, though. It was a mess.
Graham, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move, let's see, how should I word this? That a reduction in the lien amount for CE 16-0350, would that be correct? To be entered and approved in the amount of $5,850. That would be $150 a day for the 34 days that took the applicant to apply, and the reasonable period of time for town to respond of 5 days at $150 a day, $5,850.
I'll second that.
Roxanne?
I don't understand the motion. I think it would be much clearer if we would just say that we are moving to reduce the lien to X, and just state that amount.
Very good. I move that we reduce the lien to $5,850.
I'll second
For, let me finish, for the property 2633 Estera Boulevard, CE 16-0350.
I'll second it.
Multiple seconds? Multiple
I third it.
motions? Okay. I would just for the record, so Daphne will know this in the future, I'm totally with Bruce on this. To me, this, and I'm going to support the motion, but to me, this whole thing was very conflicted, and Roxanne's point about the order, and there should have been more info here in the backup. So there's a motion and a second to reduce the lien to $5,850 and execute that lien withdrawal or satisfaction or whatever as soon as possible. There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Yes, Mr. Hernstadt?
Yeah, just upon payment, we will.
Yeah, upon
I'm-
payment within 30 days.
I'm sure since it's 10% of what the gentleman thought it was to begin with, they'll write a check before they leave town hall. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen and lady in the pretty colored dress. It's a great color. Next item on the agenda is the much anticipated discussion of the short-term rental issue with condominiums. And Mr. Herron, I'll just turn this over to you.
Yes, Madam Mayor. As instructed by the council, we put before you all a draft ordinance for discussion that we believe as staff accomplishes the goal that you directed us to accomplish in drafting the ordinance, which is providing an exception to the restrictions on short-term rentals, in particular the 1 week or less. The actual exception for condominiums is anywhere from 3 days to 30 days in any zoning district in the town, subject to meeting the criteria that that documentation is provided to the town that short-term rentals are allowed by the condominium documents.
Okay. Are there questions? Yes, Roger?
I just want to be clear for everybody listening. This does not allow condominium to change the rules last week. This deals with a condominium that had shorter durations than the zoning code currently allows prior to the implementation of the town's short-term rental regulations. And upon proof of such, we will recognize their condominium documents for the shorter duration, assuming subsequent passage by the LPA and town council.
Okay. Joanne, questions?
Yeah, I don't fully agree with this, and I have a little thing here that it'll just be quicker if everybody just takes one of these, and you can kind of read along my thought process. Here's one for both of you, too. Sorry.
If I can say on the record, the agenda lists this as the first reading and public hearing, but it's not.
That's right, because we moved it onto administrative, and this is just a discussion.
So when this ordinance passed in 2003, it was clearly based on the table 34-1 and 34-2 in the Land Development Code. But starting off, if you look in the Florida statutes under vacation rental, I've highlighted the points that I'm just going to make. So on the first page, a vacation rental is any group or group of units in a condo or cooperative, any individual or collectively owned single-family, two-family, three-family, four-family house or dwelling unit that's also transient public lodging. It's very different than hotel, motel, transient apartments, bed and breakfast, timeshares. So this is grouped in with homes, and at the time that this was done in the 2003 short-term rental ordinance, they were grouped together accordingly. So then, if you look at the next page, here's that chart we talk about in section 34-630. This talks about that the restrictions on what you can do with your rentals are in these charts. But what you look at, it's highlighted. Look when you get down to Bay Beach on that same chart. Under Bay Beach, it's different, isn't it? It says see section 34-651B. When you go to 34, now the next page, 34-651B, and you look at the highlighted things, you remember that, we had a binding agreement that settled litigation with Bay Beach at the time. And if you look down in that 34-651B1, allowable land uses included those uses in lawful existence as of February 23rd, 2001, and those additional uses is defined in the settle agreement and in the DRI development order. My point with this is, and then I've included the other charts and then the code itself. When you get to the code itself from 2003, that's 34-231-91, they looked at the condos everywhere. They looked at the houses. They made the exceptions for land between Estero Boulevard and the Gulf of Mexico. And on the other side of Estero Boulevard, that was meant to include all those condominiums. That's where all the condominium buildings basically are. And those condos, they were all included at the time in this. And they were given a period of time in which they could object and come in, and they didn't. To me, Bay Beach, indeed, is the one that's identified that had potential rights. And if they can show, separate from all the other condos, I think the other condos were done in 2003. If they can show in their documents, just as what shows here in the Land Development Code and this chart, that they have that, then they've got it. It's clear, Bay Beach should be able to do that. So bring forward the document that this is all, it seems clear to me, but I think it's very clear that the other condominiums were both discussed and included and take into account that they get the 1 week at the time, and they had a period of time to respond by. So to me, this idea of every condo on the island is closed, but Bay Beach to me is clearly open from what I read. Okay, that's my rationale.
Ray, you leaned in. Do you have comment?
I just want to, the settlement agreement that you referred to at Bay Beach was for the balance of the development at Bay Beach, not the prior development, right? So we're all on the same page with that. Okay.
But it's reflected in the chart. The settlement agreement is reflected right in the land use chart, permitted. So, and I don't have that settlement agreement. I just know it's referred to, and any land uses are referred to.
It was hard won.
Yeah.
Well, I remember it. And, that was the purpose of the settlement agreement, was to finish Bay Beach. And it was the future condominiums on the Estero Boulevard side and the balance of Waterside. Everything else was already done. So that's what it was referring to. But But anyhow, I'll listen.
Go ahead, Bruce, any comments? Roxanne, any comments?
I guess my comment would be that, generally speaking, I think the condominiums in this area should be ruling themselves and we should stay out of it. So they've got their declarations, people bought into the property believing that certain declarations applied to the condo that they were purchasing, and that we need to stay out of that.
And I agree with that, Madam Mayor, Madam Chair. And even if their declaration and bylaws were updated prior to our existence, that those should be followed as well, and which happens. Am I right, Mr. Attorney? The condominium documents are updated by the associations themselves from time to time. In other words, if they had a 1-week minimum and they went to a 2-week minimum or a monthly minimum or whatever subsequent to their original filings, that could be that would be updated as well.
In discussing this matter and here is, I think that the operative date is that is being suggested is potentially inserting into the ordinance that the short-term rental use has to have been in existence prior to the initial adoption of the short-term rental regulations. Other than that, if they were before then and they can show evidence of that and it's in their condo documents, they would be continued. They can continue to do that.
I'm not going to make any comments on this until the LPA sees it and the parties who were affected by it have an opportunity to comment on it. But I will tell you that though everything you've passed out here is accurate, Joanne, I just much like stormwater, and isn't it interesting that stormwater and short-term rental, STR. Short-term rentals occupied years of my life, and at the time, that discussion didn't include the opting in was more specific, was specific, at least in my memory, to homes in specific neighborhoods who were renting weekly, were given the option or the opportunity to claim that, but it wasn't condominiums. Now, I've been looking for some old minutes and to see if my recollection is accurate, and I'll continue to look for that as this moves forward. Anyhow, so we're sending this now to the LPA. Will this go to their next meeting? So they're meeting in November?
I don't know, I can talk to Mr. Green. We could potentially.
Yes, it will be on the next available meeting.
Yeah, they have a meeting next week.
They have a meeting next week. It'd be great for it to be on the meeting next week and then come back to us in November.
We'll try and make that happen.
Thank you very much. Anybody have anything else on this item? Okay. The next item, that's the appointments. Okay. So could I make a procedural suggestion? I think I suggested this before. We have all these appointments in October. Instead of having each particular one, it'd be nice to have a chart and one blue sheet that says Community Resource Advisory Board, openings, vacate, and just instead of each one having a section, it'll save paper and time and everything else if we just had a chart to
Charts
look
on
at.
page, there are 288, there's
yeah.
a one chart.
Yeah, there's lots of them. There's one on every single group gets that same chart. But if it was all, it's just repeated in every section. I'm just looking at a time-saving, paper-saving opportunity to sort of consolidate it. Here are all the committees and what we need to do. So anyhow, probably won't happen, but, so.
I have a preliminary matter.
Yes, go ahead.
Somewhere in the documents that I looked at, there was a mention that we might want to consider consolidating committees in the future. And I'm not wanting to do this today, but I'd like to throw the idea out there that I think it might be appropriate in the future that we consolidate CellCab and VorCab. The work of CellCab is vastly over at this point. They got the place up and running. It is one of our recreation areas of the town, and it would seem to me to make sense that in the future we would consider having one committee that has to do with all of our properties that have to do with recreation. Newton Park doesn't have a separate committee for it. So it's
totally
something-
agree.
It's just something to consider for future. I'm not saying, I want to throw it out there so people can start thinking about it and talking about it.
Come up with a nice acronym for that, will you?
I wondered about MRF and AAC too.
I discussed that with both of those committees at one point because I was the liaison, and they gave me great reasons why they did very separate functions, and they do have very separate functions. Anchorage Advisory actually advises staff on issues, and in their documents. And I guess I would. To me, the more people you have engaged in the town, the better. And even though CellCab their work is, largely accomplished, as you said, Rexanne, I think that they'll move on to doing more work with Newton. And to me, the Bay Oaks and the Newton Mound House things are very different. But maybe that'll be the next council that makes this decision. We'll see. So I'm just going to move on to the first item, which is the Anchorage Advisory Committee. And we do have Mike Ratliff, Bill Kubasek, and Greg Holmes, whose terms have expired and who have applied for reappointment. If I could have a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so thank you, Mike, Bill, and Greg, for your continued service. All those in favor say aye.
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 The next item is the Audit Committee. And here we have, I had a long conversation with Jim Rodwell this weekend because I swear he told me he was going to retire. So I reached out to Jim Steele, and lo and behold, Jim's decided not to retire. But fortunately, we have an opportunity to expand that board. And I would like somebody to entertain a motion for Mr. Steele, Mr. Lombard, Mr. Rodwell, and Mr. Goggin.
So moved.
Is there a second?
And I'd like to make the comment, though, that we haven't just voluntarily expanded this board,
No,
that their establishing ordinance actually says, Michelle, if you could.
Membership would be no less than 4 and no more than 7.
So we are not just voluntarily expanding this because we like people, which we do, but.
All extraordinary gentlemen with each individual skill set, and very happy to have them all. This will also help with their quorum because there's a couple with some issues there. And so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just one little bit. That was in your absence, Mayor, when I chaired that meeting. And I gave Mr. Rodwell a lovely retirement speech and extolled his virtues on and on and on. And
Apparently it wasn't good enough.
apparently. So,
Either that or he wants it again.
So the next chat you have with Mr. Rodwell, tell him I'll reserve that for his eulogy.
Oh, no, that's terrible. God.
No, it's not.
I'll spare him that. All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Gentlemen, if you're listening, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
The next is committee appointments to Bay Oaks Rec Center. And we do have 3 members who are reapplying, Mr. Melsick, Barbara Hill, and Ray Sproul. It does leave a vacancy. I think we heard Mr. Allers say he would be willing to do that again if necessary, but I'll entertain a motion here, however somebody sees fit, and thank all of them for their service.
I'll move to reappoint those gentlemen, and also,
Ladies and gentlemen.
oh, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm
That's
sorry.
right, don't leave Barbara out.
Okay,
And
yes,
Ray.
Barbara. and leave it at that. If Mr. Allers decides later on that he wants to join, he can just
Okay.
apply and
Okay.
join.
So we have Mr. Melsick, Barbara Hill, Ray Sproul. Is there a second for that?
Second.
There's a second, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any objection to the reappointment of those three fine people?
I would have added Mr. Allers in right now since he stated on the record, but he hasn't done a piece of paperwork yet, so I guess we'll let it hang.
Okay. So hearing no objection, that motion carries unanimously, and thank them all for their service to the town. The next is Community Resource Advisory Board. Forrest Kritzer and Becky Weber have reapplied. That does leave a vacancy. Michael Lund was here earlier, and I guess he's going to not participate on that board anymore. So we have Forrest Kritzer and Becky Weber. May I have a motion to approve those two volunteers?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any objection? Thank you, Forrest and Becky. We appreciate it. The next is CELCAB. And CELCAB, we have Cindy Richardson, Becky Werner, and Lori Wolf all reapplying for their positions there, all wonderfully experienced CELCAB members. And may I have a motion to approve their reappointment?
Moved.
There's a motion by Mr. Murphy and seconded by Rexanne. And any discussion on that? Any objection? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Becky, for being here. The next item is the Historic Advisory Committee. We have Bev Milligan and Lori Wolf. Both, I guess Mr. DeLuca is not reapplying. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. May I have a motion to approve Ms. Milligan and Ms. Wolf?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any objection to the motion? That carries unanimously. The next one is the Local Planning Agency, and you actually have a ballot here. And we have three members who have reapplied and two new members, Jim Nickel and Dan Allers. And while Michelle's calculating that, we'll move on to the next one, which is the Marine Resource Task Force. Mary Rose Spalletta and Bill Veach have both asked to be reapplied, and we certainly appreciate that. And Patty Feste has not, will leave a vacancy. If I could have a motion for Mr. Veach and Ms. Spalletta.
So moved.
Second. So motion and a second. Is there any objection to that? Thank you, Bill and Mary Rose. We appreciate your continued service to the Marine Resource Task Force. Motion carries unanimously. Public safety, we've got Mike Childs, Tom Gressman, and Jim Nickel, and I'm putting that there because he is the only new one, and there is a vacancy for Mr. DeLuca. May I have a motion to approve those three gentlemen?
So moved.
There's a motion to approve.
Second.
And seconded by Rexanne and Ray. Mr. Childs, Mr. Gressman, and Mr. Nickel. Any objection to that motion? The motion carries unanimously. Michelle, do you have our local planning agency?
Madam Mayor, while Michelle's calculating the results of the ballot, I think it'd be appropriate to have just a motion. As you may recall, anyone who's being on two committees has to be given a waiver. So to the extent that any appointments creates that situation.
Does it? Lori Wolf? Lori Wolf.
Well, just in case any of them.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Process today, it'd be
Okay.
good to just have the waiver on the record.
Okay,
Bill
excellent.
Veach, there's others.
Yeah, that's right. Bill Beach, too. Okay, thank you very much.
I have the results, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Dan Allers received 3 votes. Dan Hughes received 5. James Nickel received 2. Jane Plummer received 3. And Lori Wolf received 2. So Dan Hughes, Dan Allers, and Jane Plummer.
Interesting. Okay. Dan Hughes, Dan Allers, and Jane Plummer. Congratulations. May I have a motion to approve that? Jane
Second.
Plummer, Dan Hughes, and Dan Allers. There's a motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion? The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to everyone. So now may I have a motion, please, to waive anyone who perhaps will have a conflict of being on two committees. Roxanne?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
And seconded by Joanne. Any discussion on that motion? Any objection to that? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, and thank you everyone who takes their time to participate on our town committees. The town could not function without our volunteers. The next item is final public comment. Would anybody care to make any comment?
I have a request from, Mr. Kurt Bills filled out a request, but I believe he's left the meeting.
Okay,
And then I have a request from John Goggin.
okay.
John Goggin, for the record. The first thing I have is if we could ask that you notify the new members of the Public Safety Committee immediately so that they can be there Wednesday. One is a former officer, police officer with traffic experience, and the other is a gentleman who's got tremendous lighting experience from Florida Public.
Oh, Mike, that's good.
So
Very good.
the other thing I've had a couple people ask, the meeting is October 9th, this Wednesday at 3:30, right here. So those that want to attend, that's it. I've talked to Chelsea. We will have an aerial of the foot of the bridge, and we will have whiteboards to draw and make
Excellent.
recommendations and get those
Excellent,
back to you within a week. And the other thing is, that was the original big agenda item, is the lighting study, the MPO lighting study. It's 133 pages, so we probably won't get through all 133 pages, but those that are interested in lighting on the island, that draft has got to us, we will be bringing that up on Wednesday as well. Thank you.
Is your meeting in Chambers?
Yes.
Here we meet.
Because Murph has a meeting at 4:30, am I wrong?
Well, we'll talk fast.
I just want to, I may be wrong, but I have it on my calendar.
I do too.
So I just wanted
I have a 1 PM for public safety and a 4:30 for Murph.
Well, you better verify, because I just checked with Chelsea, and she told me it was 3:30. That's what our agenda showed.
I just didn't want you to be cramped on time. That's the only reason I mentioned
No.
this.
So I just asked her during the break. So if it's 1, we'll have to do some hustling to adjust it.
Well, 3:30 is not enough time, so if there's another meeting at 4, something has to change. I mean, you can't.
If everyone just take a break for a minute, we're going to verify with Chelsea. I think the 3:30 may have been predicated by someone coming, so she'll be here in a minute.
Yeah, the lighting study, I believe that was the county.
So you could
representative.
perhaps we can try to get everyone here earlier to work on the other issue and then pick up the lighting study at 3:30, and hopefully you'll make as much progress as you can, but we'll
We
find
just
out in
need
a
to
moment.
let the members, the 2 new members, and by the way, Pete Crumpacker was the other member. There were 2 openings on the committee. Pete was also one who did not.
Mr. Vice Chair, Mayor, we'll get to that in a moment. Chelsea's on her way in.
Okay, well, we'll keep moving. Anybody else, public comment? Dan?
Dan Allers, for the record. First, I just want to thank you for the appointment to the LPA, and then share 2 quick things with you that I've talked to some people about as I've been walking around over the last year. As you talk about the entrance at the bottom of Matanzas Bridge, and as you go forward, there's always a lot of talk about pedestrians, but there's some concern that there's no talk about places for people to park their bicycles. There's a lot of excitement about the finishing of Estero Boulevard and people being able to come from the south end to the north end, but that there's no place for them to park their bicycles or lock them up. We've all seen at the base of the bridge on both sides how they lock their bikes up, and it just looks terrible. So if you can keep that in mind as you go forward looking at that plan, that would be great. Also, along the rebranding issue, was it last Tuesday or Tuesday before, I had a friend in from out of town that has never been here before. So we went out, I think it was a Tuesday, to have, some snacks over at Old San Carlos. There's my vehicle and 3 other vehicles on the street. He took the time to download the app, put time on the app, whatever. We go inside. We come back out, we walk over to Salty Crab. He gets an alert on his phone that the time's about to expire. So I'm like, not thinking, I probably should have just opened my app and put it on. So he tried to go back in and add another hour to his 1 hour that he already paid for. It wouldn't let him. So we started walking back. By the time it took us to walk from Salty Crab to my vehicle, I had a ticket. And his first response was, wow, they really are welcoming here, aren't they? So I just wanted to share that story with you because people are finding it very difficult to know where they park, how they pay, how long they can stay, because there's a lot going on down there in that Times Square area, as we all know, as far as if you park in the lot or you park on the street or you park in a private lot. I just wanted to bring that story up, that the ticket wasn't the issue. It was his response to that ticket that kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. So I just wanted to share those stories with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Any other public comment? Anyone care to make any public comment? All right. Next item is town manager's items. Lagoon Road drainage.
Madam Mayor and members of council, we, as we've done in every section of town, had a public meeting to give the residents of the affected community on the Estero Boulevard/town joint outfall program an opportunity to review the plans and be aware of the project design. When that occurred, we had some residents on a particular section had an objection to the proposed improvements. As was done in another area of town, we gave them an opportunity to bring in way of, in writing, their opinions forward to the town. And those persons along that area have signed a petition and asking that, that the improvement in front of their homes be excluded. We have provided a report from the designer, Tetra Tech, the engineering firm who's been planning the town's stormwater system, as to the impact of that, and I'll give you the opportunity by putting it on the agenda for some discussion by town council as to what you would like us to do next.
Okay.
And of course, we have staff here to answer any questions you may have.
Bruce, I'm going to let you start this off. This is your neighborhood. Unless you don't want to.
No, that's fine. So what's the unintended consequences of not putting that drainage system on that section of Lagoon Road?
We'll have
Tetra Tech,
come up
Christie? Okay, who?
speak. Tetra Tech will speak to that. They've written a memo about that. But go ahead, Christie.
Oh, yeah, got it, right.
Good morning. Tim Vanderwalker for the record with Tetra
Hi,
Tech.
Tim. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Based on the discussions that we had at the public meeting, we went back and double-checked the model and the engineering that we had performed for this section. The unintended consequence, in essence, would be the additional flow that we're adding to the system on Redfish would create a backup to the existing Buccaneer system. And whereas with the system as we have it now designed, we would see about a ½ inch of staging up of water above the inlets for approximately 15 minutes. If that system was taken out, Buccaneer, that area in that Buccaneer Lagoon intersection would see about 1.5 feet of water for an hour and 45 minutes. So that's based on a simplified approach to the system and assuming a level of area that would get flooded to that level. So it could be wider, it could be shallower, but that amount of water basically, that 1.5 feet of water up for that amount of time, that water's got to go somewhere. So it's going to hold up and it's going to back up in that system while that big slug of water comes through that Redfish system from the county that they're adding through the drainage system that we all know about. That's going to hold that water up until it's gone through and then let it go out the system as it normally would.
Okay.
I guess my question to you is, did you explain that it would advert to these folks who are objecting that it would adversely affect their neighbors?
At the meeting, I don't think that was portrayed to that amount at that time. So as I said, we heard their comments, and so we wanted to double check on that to make sure we could take it out or not take it out.
So at the time they objected, they were unaware that it might adversely affect their neighbors?
Correct. That's my understanding. I'm not going to speak for them, but that's what I would understand it to be.
Now, with regard to the leaving the piping, but removing drains themselves, let's say.
Sure.
Can you discuss that impact or concerns with regard to that, or any positive, negative? Positive, it saves costs; negative, it whatever. Positive, it affects properties less; negative, it whatever.
Sure. I don't see any change in cost because those inlets would need to be replaced with manholes, and so you're still putting in a structure there. The inlets, the manholes could be placed within the roadway instead of within the property, or not, still within the right-of-way, but the inlets are shown in the green space because that's where the water needs to go. So there could be some alignment to get these manholes into the roadway, but then they're not going to be providing any type of drainage for that street along there. So they would lose that. Like I said, the system would still need to be there. Buccaneer still needs that relief from that system. So that's kind of the pros and cons, or opportunities and constraints that are provided.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, just to be clear, that the residents on the street at the public meeting we had on the project said that they felt that the street did not need to drain. They didn't have a flooding problem on their street. So I think what I'm hearing Tim say is that he still feels we need the capacity, but we don't necessarily, according to the residents, need inlets on the street.
And you know, this is the difficult choice of sitting in these seats. Because we've had this before, as you remember, and Anita, I remember you calling it this Grand Canal and how it all interconnects, and it does.
I say Grand Canal because that's very.
You did. Oh, I remember. It was like my first time sitting on council.
It scared you, didn't you?
And we've had other streets, you know, I think Hercules, for instance, maybe was one that didn't flood and wound up having a big project. In the long run, they're thrilled with how their street was handled, and I appreciate that. But this is difficult because we have also constraints because of the size of the outfalls that we can put too. It's not like we can just go someplace and put like a giant outfall and change it because of that, because then you wind up with, you know, EPA monitoring problems and all kinds of things. So you wind up with having designed these for the size of the entire basin of drainage, not just for the street per se. And when it's your street and you feel like you're sort of taking one for the team, I know it's not appreciated, and it's a difficult situation for town council to be in, because we do love our neighborhoods, and we like to protect each and every property and every street. I mean, that's what we're here for. So these are difficult decisions, but when you have something where you're going to wind up with, you know, that kind of flooding at an intersection, and there is no other, is there any other alternative? Can you lay an extra pipe someplace where you already have a street opened up? Are there other opportunities to honor this neighborhood's request and still provide the drainage needed and the water cleaning needed for our water quality?
It would require a redesign, and easements would more than likely need to be acquired by the town to get to another location that gets access to the water. Of course, as engineers, we can design whatever needs to be designed. It's just a matter of working in the constraints that we have.
So then there's time and money constraints in trying to see if somebody will allow an easement. So then we're inflicting these issues on other properties then for easements on them.
Yes. As well as affecting the timeline that we're on right now with the Estero Boulevard system and meeting that schedule, and that's a whole other.
Yeah, but
That's all my questions that I have, sorry.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, this isn't going to affect Estero Boulevard. Because you're going down Redfish and Tarpon to dump Estero Boulevard, right?
Well, just in terms of the grand scheme of this construction getting done and the time frame for that, so.
So what's the problem I have with some of this is that Lagoon was, or not Lagoon Road, but Laguna Shores had a couple of Tier 1 streets. And to me, they should have looked at the Tier 1 streets as part of this system, because now they're going to have to come back and do the Tier 1 streets after they do the outfall. And one of the Tier 1 concerns that all the neighbors agreed to, I believe, was at Buccaneer and Buccaneer. I call it Buccaneer and Buccaneer. I don't know what the legal thing is there. But that corner floods a lot. And so where does that water go? Is that going to go into the Buccaneer system that was going to then go down to Lagoon, or was that going to go to another outfall? So that hasn't been resolved. And
When
then,
you say Buccaneer, and you're looking on this, where is that?
Say that.
I've seen-
So that area was
Got
brought
it.
up at the meeting,
Got it.
and it's something that we're looking into. So we would also consider that as a town-only improvement, which we, since we're working.
Entrance. Okay.
Since we're working in that neighborhood, I think it is the best time to look at that. We've reached out to the county. They're installing 2 boxes at the intersection of Estero and Buccaneer. So the ideal solution would be to put a drainage inlet at that intersection of Buccaneer and Buccaneer and run a pipe back to the Estero Boulevard system. That water would eventually end up in the joint outfall system, but that would be the ideal. The other solution might be to put the drain there and run it to the existing system that outfalls on Lagoon Vista. That's the little cul-de-sac off of Buccaneer.
Yep.
The only constraint there is if a bigger pipe is needed, there is an easement for that outfall that's there. However, it's really pinched between 2 houses. And so between us as the engineer and the contractor in vetting this whole area as far as places that we can outfall, we just determined that the constructability of getting between those 2 houses, it's not a good thing for anyone to do that.
But Tim, to clarify, right now, based on what you know about the Buccaneer issue, the council decision about the matter that's before them today would not be tied to that system.
Correct,
In
correct.
either case. So
Correct.
does that,
That's just a separate issue
It's a
that we're
separate
looking
issue.
into.
yeah, but has to be, or should be addressed. So then the other issue then becomes, if you have a solution for a Buccaneer that goes back to Estero, then that's fine, that's good. But then what about the rest of Buccaneer and the people that live there? Shouldn't they have a voice in what happens? Because you're saying there's going to be 1.5 feet of water? Really?
Yeah, based on our modeling, we're seeing, just to compare apples to apples, the same area that would flood a 1/2 inch, as we have it designed now, that area would flood 1.5 feet. So I've got assumed in the model that it's about 1,000 square feet. Depending on, you have to have 1.5 feet to fill, so it may be that it's more widespread, but it's still a lot more water that you're
Okay, so
seeing.
you're saying it's the water volume is 1.5 feet by 1,000 square feet?
Right.
Okay, so it's, I just couldn't visualize a 1.5
foot and a
feet
half.
of water.
I can. I got it in front of my house all summer long, and 1.5 feet is no fun.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
One point that I think Tim hit on, but I don't know if he made it abundantly clear, and that is that it's our belief that if the council were to go to the pipe only, not without inlets, pipe only with manholes, that construction could probably be accomplished within the asphalt width and not encroach into the rights of way very much, if at all. So, you know, they would still have construction on their block, but it would affect their properties very minimally, if at all. other than dealing with the construction.
That's an alternative,
That's an alternative.
a minimally invasive alternative.
It
No,
would be
that-
minimally
look says
invasive.
no.
Well, I would just advise against putting a drainage system down a road and not including inlets.
Exactly, okay. Bruce, other comment?
We have another comment, but it's not specific to that, so let's get this one done first. But I still am concerned that the people on Buccaneer in general need
And
to...
redfish.
Well, the redfish, not so much. Redfish is going to be taken care of. But the people on Buccaneer, do they have flooding issues that are going to not be mitigated as a result of not going down Lagoon?
So currently, the Buccaneer system runs down Buccaneer to Redfish and then up and out with no connection to Estero Boulevard. So whether they see any flooding issues now becomes somewhat of a moot point because the whole system is going to change when the Redfish joint outfall gets installed. So we're mitigating against the future issues that they're going to have because of that connection to Estero Boulevard.
Tim, I think the more direct question is, if we said, okay, we won't do this on Lagoon, what happens to the people on Buccaneer?
Then they will see
They'll see flooding.
flooding issues, yes.
Okay. Ray, questions?
Nope.
Bruce, anything else?
They won't see any more flooding than they have today, or will it be more flooding than they have today?
They would see more than they have today.
Hey, you guys are going to have to settle down. I get that this is personal. Okay, and Bruce, anything else? Roxanne?
Well, I guess I would indicate this has been brought before us to take action. I would say we should take no action and keep the plan in place as it is.
See, can I ask you a question? So we have 12 petitions. What are the other 7 people who didn't sign a petition on Lagoon? Does that indicate that they're not opposed to it?
Christy
You don't
Corey,
know.
for the record, to be honest with you, I would have no idea, because the residents put the petition together. It wasn't something that we did on our end.
Okay, so there's 7 missing people. Tim, can I ask you another question? What happens to the further extension of Lagoon? Or like you said, that cul-de-sac of Lagoon Vista? Any impact?
The further impacts of Buccaneer?
Of
Lagoon
Xing off-
Vista is off of Buccaneer.
Okay, of not doing the Lagoon Road. I mean, if we answer the petition, what happens to, is there any impact on the further length of Lagoon Road? Or what's this little guy right here? Oh, that's where the joint outfall is, okay. Which is important for the Back Bay? Yeah. Yep, okay. Okay. Joanne, anything further to add? Ray, anything further to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay, what's the action of the
Can I
council?
ask one more question?
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Yeah. So this 1,500 square feet, where would that be? Was that just generally speaking, or is that at a particular intersection?
At the intersection of Lagoon and Buccaneer.
So can you connect that down to Buccaneer, and go back to Estero?
Yeah, if the county said that they had enough capacity to hold that and it's not going to blow up the Estero Boulevard system, that's an option. Like I said, there's a lot of different options that we can take to get that water to the Back Bay or to Estero Boulevard. It's just a matter of further study and further coordination with the county. And
So when we had pardon me, Bruce, when we had the issue on Aberdeen, what was it, Aberdeen, Dundee, that neighborhood. And we had that issue. The delay was multiple years. And that multiple year delay, of course, backed up everything. It backed up stormwater, water, and the road.
Sure.
Would this be a multiple year delay also for permitting purposes, redesign, and costs? I mean, would it be safe to say that it's the same idea?
So just to take that section out and not do anything is going to be tough because as engineers, we have to
You have to redo something.
something would have to be done. So ideally, before that connection to Estero happened, we would have something in order that would take care of it so we don't have this time where we knew something bad, if we had a bad storm, something would happen, a home gets flooded, other damages are incurred. If we're in this interim point, then that doesn't look good for us as engineers and our duty as engineers.
It compromises the system.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
So this system as a whole really is the ultimate case of everything is interconnected in this neighborhood. It's a big area. It has a lot of drainage area. We have an interconnection between the Redfish system and the Tarpon system just to get all of that water spread out throughout the system where we can put it.
So, folks, I'm going to be very direct with you and tell you what my point of view is here. Mr. Gucciardo sitting back there happens to live on Dundee, and he also lives on that road with, who I've known him for 30 years, with Dan and Lois Parker, who've also been my friends for 30 plus years. To make a long story short, that neighborhood, there are about 6 families that I either grew up with or have been very close friends with for many, 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 many years. And I voted against them because the system, as Joanne said, I called it the Grand Canal, every piece is interconnected. And when you take one piece out or try to arrange another piece, it creates a domino effect. And, well, sir, it's not. And I can't change my course on that because I thought it was extremely important at the beginning, and there's yet to be anything that deters me from that. And so I'm going to support Roxanne and Joanne so far in saying that we should not change our course here. I don't know what.
I didn't say that yet.
Oh, you didn't say that yet. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you that I don't think we should change our course here. And I'm telling you very directly so you don't have any question about where I stand with it because you've taken the time to be here. And I get that it was on my street. I had to live for about 8 months with that same situation on my street in front of my house. My car, which is dark blue, looked beige for many months because the whole road got torn up. And it was very difficult. So I'm not minimizing any of the impacts. I don't know if this will be to that extent or not, but I'm telling you I endured it myself. And the end result, as Joanne did say, on Hercules and other streets, Fairweather, my street, other streets that have had this renovation, has been very positive on the final end. So just because you're sitting here, I'm telling you how I feel about it, and not just giving you a yes or no vote. Out of respect for you all and the time you've taken to be here today. Anybody else have any comments? Otherwise, may I have a motion to, no, sir? There's no, sir, you had 2 or 3 different opportunities to speak today under public comment. It's not a public hearing, sir, unless somebody else on the, please, unless somebody else on the council would like to open public comment. Anyone? Okay. Is there?
I have no objection. I mean, if, I'm sorry if that delays it, but if it's going to, it's not going to satisfy him. Okay, forget it then.
Is there any other discussion? If there's not, is there a motion? Is there anything?
I would say
other
there
than
should
me
not be a
speaking?
motion. We just move on.
Agree with that, John, Roger?
Unless there's a change, if, then you would direct staff to make whatever changes to the plans that previously have been approved.
Is there any inclination from anybody on the council to change the plans or the course for this particular project here? Joanne?
Sadly, no, I wish I could, I really do.
Okay, Roxanne doesn't have any issue, Bruce?
I would just like that I'm concerned about Buccaneer, the people on Buccaneer, and their lack of ability to vote on this and their final solution. So, if there could be something done for the people of Buccaneer and save that lagoon effort, I would be for that, but I'm not hearing a solution right now.
Okay, Ray,
Well, I heard a possible solution that might take years and delay the project and so forth, and I'm not of a mind to do that.
okay. Sorry, folks. Sir, sir, thank you very much. Okay, Christie? Did you not tell me that you told the gentleman that he could speak at public comment?
I did not tell the gentleman.
Oh, okay.
No.
Sorry. Well, all right, next, anything else, Roger?
Yes, Madam Mayor. As Mr. Goggin mentioned in his report from the Public Safety Committee, the lighting study is beginning to move forward for review and consideration. One of the issues we discovered is that while we're doing the Lanny Kai Times Square sidewalk, we determined that we may not have enough places for light poles in the event that we have to be able to adequately address.
Roger, hold on one second. I see Ava standing up. I'm just wondering if they have an issue in the lobby. Do they, Chelsea? I will find out. Thank you very much. Diversity, they usually say. Any issue? Okay. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Roger, sorry.
So we're not exactly certain to be able to address the turtle lighting requirements, whether we can provide enough candlelight lighting for public safety and still meet the turtle lighting requirements without additional pole locations. So it's our recommendation that until that gets resolved, that we proceed with a change order to install approximately 6 additional locations in the event that the only way we can both meet turtle lighting and the candlelight power we desire for public safety. And of course, if we don't need those, they would be backfilled with concrete at a later date, but we just didn't want to pour the sidewalks and then have to cut it and try to excavate at a later date. So I'm just advising you that we think it's the safest course of action to change order the contract for these 6 additional locations should they become needed. And if not, we will backfill them with concrete at a later date.
Okay. Any comments on that, Joanne?
Just a quick comment, and pedestrian safety's always first, and following our turtle code for lighting is important, but by having more pole locations, and I would assume a little different lighting, a little lower use design, does that also provide for maybe some unique and attractive lighting in that area as an entry feature? I just mentioned in passing, that's all. If you meet all the other requirements, and it also has something that's just kind of fun for that area and adds to the entry, think about it. That's all I'm saying. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else, Roger?
Yeah, yes. It got mentioned earlier about bike racks in the downtown area, and of course, part of our overall redesign for that area. We have an ongoing effort there, and we will be sure to include bike racks. We have spent a lot on infrastructure to accommodate and encourage bicycle usage, and of course, we need to provide places for people to park their bicycles.
Thank you. Anything else, Roger? Any questions or any issues for Roger?
I have a question about the lighting. So are they going to do something particularly special at crosswalks for this lighting in this area here? Or is this just general sidewalk lighting or street lighting?
So I was talking about street light as compared to the, does everyone give me the bad microphone so I hurry up and get the new ones? As compared to,
Is it working?
I don't know if you're hearing me or not.
No,
but,
no, I mean, is it working? Are they coming faster?
Yeah, no.
I didn't think so.
No, we have to get updated prices on that, so since so much time has elapsed. But in any event, the traffic lighting and the signal lighting are really two different things. So they manage the traffic lighting in terms of turtles one way, and they manage the street lighting regarding turtles another way.
I'm talking about crosswalk lighting.
Typically, crosswalk lighting is shielded.
Well, typically, crosswalk lighting doesn't work the way we do it. It's terrible. And to give you an example, after that songwriters thing the other night, Sunday night, I think, or no, Friday night, I'm driving home, coming to the crosswalk at Crescent Street, and if my wife hadn't screamed, there's somebody walking across the street, it would have gone kaboom, kaboom. And the person wasn't walking in the crosswalk. They were 5 feet this side of the crosswalk. There was a car in the left turn lane.
A really bad
and
one.
I had lights shining in my eye, and my wife was sitting looking sideways, and that's how she saw it. I saw not a thread on that person. This lighting has to get fixed at crosswalks.
But if that person wasn't in the crosswalk, you just said they weren't in the crosswalk.
That's
So
right.
lighting at the crosswalk wouldn't have helped that situation.
Well, actually, I think it would have, because it would have reduced the glare. If you put the crosswalk lights properly,
I agree.
I think it probably would have picked her up.
Well, I think the answer is that I don't know that we probably could find anybody who's really satisfied with the crosswalk situation and the crosswalk lighting. I know the Public Safety Committee is working extremely hard with the county to try to develop a plan that more closely meets the needs of the town. And I'm sure Mr. Goggin is here today. I'm sure he's hearing your comments.
I know he has.
You know what, I got another one for you. There's a property near us, and it's multiple units on both sides of the street, and the street light was too bright for turtle season. They just plain turn it off in turtle season. They actually turn it off. So there's no light for safety for these people crossing across. That was the solution. Can't continue with that.
Would anyone like to, John, I'm hesitant to bring you up here just because I just told that whole group no. So just hold on. You can tell us afterwards, all right? Anything else, Bruce?
Well, I just going to make this one comment about the public meeting we had with the Lagoon folks last week. Was that only last week? Laguna
Maybe
Shores?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there, and a couple of people got a little rowdy, and but we got through it. But the thing that was interesting to me, and I say this not to complain about the change, but what happened at that meeting, we showed where the pipes were going to go. When I left last week, and I came home last night, the plan has changed. And I don't find that very comforting that we have a public meeting saying what we're going to do, and then we change the plan and didn't tell anybody. And it's on my street, not those other streets.
Well, Counselor, you mentioned that to me. I haven't had a chance to look into it, obviously, because we've all been sitting here today. But I will tell you, on every single street, there are minor field adjustments being made. I don't really know of any, what I would call major field adjustments. Whenever we know about those, we try to bring those here to council, to you and the public know about them, but I will look into that, and I will get back to you, what's going on in your street.
Roger, could you give us an update on the meeting you had about the boat races? And let everybody know that the issue was resolved about the sheriff, and I'm guessing the fire department will be reimbursed and whatnot.
Right, so we, at the request primarily of the Fire Rescue District, they felt that one more meeting was needed to go over the implementation of the boat races. So we had a meeting here on Thursday afternoon. The folks from the boat race people are here, as well as the Fire Rescue District, Lee County EMS, Lee-Tran, the sheriff, and so on. We had about 25 people in the room. We walked through the event, and basically, I would just say that everything was, is this taken care of? And the answer back was yes. Do you understand you can't do something? And the answer was yes. And for example, that was that there's been no permit for a fuel truck. That was one of the examples of, you understand that there's no permit request for a fuel truck, and therefore you can't have one, and the answer back was yes. So we walked through the event, we went around through all the agencies, gave them a question to get any questions or concerns resolved, and that happened. At the meeting, it was announced that the public safety agencies needed to get a permit for their vehicles that go on the beach, an annual permit. Some of the agencies immediately just paid for it right on the spot. One of the agencies objected. That came out of our Public Works Department, and after the agency objected and review by, of actually reading the code by the town attorney and myself, we found out that the public agency was correct. There was an exemption from them in the code, so they were informed they didn't have to pay, and the other agencies who did pay will be given a refund. It's $100, but we'll give them a refund.
Okay. Anything else for questions for Roger? Town attorney items?
Yes, Madam Mayor, one item. A number of you all have received communications and concerns from your constituents regarding the two structures commonly referred to that were involved in the Junkanoo litigation, about securing them and making sure that they're in a secure condition, particularly this time of year, hurricanes and things of that nature. I just wanted to update you all that we are, I personally am communicating with the property owner's attorney to make sure that those steps are taken to secure the structure. Frankly, it's been slow. I've advised the property owner's attorney this morning that it was taking too slow, and that if they don't pick up the pace and complete the securing of those structures, that the town will take action against the property owner, and hopefully we're trying to avoid that. It's already taken up a lot of time and resources of the town, but unfortunately, I'm not surprised, as I think that none of you are surprised that a simple request to that particular property owner just doesn't appear to be able to make it happen. So.
I'd like to reiterate too that we've had complaints from the public with regard to the use of that structure by individuals, and so.
But so politely, Joanne.
That's why it's important from a safety point of view for the community that we pursue this.
Exactly.
And that information has been conveyed to the attorney for the property owner, and as I will keep each and every one of you posted as.
Was there a timeline, John?
Well, that's actually the specific issue that I asked of the attorney to provide me with a specific timeline, and that it needed to be done effectively yesterday, because every day that goes by is too long, frankly. He has already responded saying that he's going to get with me this afternoon, and as soon as I have that information, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything for any questions for the attorney? Roger, you wanted to go back?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I don't know how I forgot.
Oh, yeah.
I received on Friday a request from TPI Margaritaville with the big event that we're having this upcoming weekend, and hopefully many people from Lee County and elsewhere coming to Fort Myers Beach to enjoy the event. They were asking us permission to install their project signs early, and Mr. Gutierrez, I appreciate you helping
Carol
your Vanna
Merrill.
White.
Visual aid?
You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to be doing this. However, you just need one extra hand.
I hope you understand the importance of not only informing the people here in town of the importance that this project is now moving forward, but people who otherwise are not staying up with the day-to-day news of the town to be aware that after many years, this project is moving forward, and posting signage on the site would convey that message. So
How do we give you that authority, Roger?
just by motion be fine.
I have a question. Can you be specific about how you do the signs? Like, from my point of view, places that are now vacant that will become Margaritaville would be great to have those in the windows too. It might be encouraging for people to understand these aren't just vacant storefronts, but there is something in the works. But besides something like that, where else would you be placing the signs?
We've provided a map that shows the 4 designated locations.
Okay.
So there'll be 2 along Estero Boulevard, actually 2 of the signs also kind of connected at the base of the bridge when you come down, very close to where the Ocean Jewels property was. So you'll see them there, as well as along our property on Estero Boulevard. We're also complying as best we can with the regulations in terms of the height of the sign and the size of the signs.
Yeah, those will be in compliance. It's really a matter, and the locations are fine, they meet the code. The only question is timing.
Somebody like
I
to
move
make a
that we
motion?
waive the timing requirement on the placement of signs and allow them to be placed ASAP.
Second that.
Motion and a second. Is there any objection? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
By the way, I love the Coconut Telegraph Cafe. That'll just be buzzing.
Oh, yeah, until they're
Buzzing.
talking about you.
Hey, so long as they're talking. All right. Next item is council members' items and reports. Vice Mayor Murphy, anything?
I have nothing this morning.
Rexanne?
Nothing.
Bruce?
Yes. A couple of weeks ago, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago now, John Talmadge, the economic developer, Lee County Economic Development Director, toured the island with Jackie and myself, and we went.
That's who it was.
We went for, yeah, and we met Anita, and we
Yes,
met
we did.
Rexanne,
Mhm.
so we didn't see you two guys, so,
Both in the middle of Times Square.
yeah.
I was in
Um,
prime time moving.
But he was very excited about the visit, and
Good.
he told me it was the best day he's had in his office since he's took the job. And then I saw him again later that week, and he ran up and said the same thing again, so.
Good.
Anyhow, he was very excited. He was offering lots of thoughts and ideas and help and things, and he's.
Money? I'm teasing.
Well, maybe. And so he's putting a report together to get back with us and give us some ideas and some
Maybe
places
he would
that
understand how important the gateway to the island is.
Talked about that.
Well, maybe he'd like to opine on that for all this processing.
Also,
You should talk to him about that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we also spoke about the pier and how narrow it was, and he looked at it and go, ooh, yeah. So anyhow.
Did he appreciate that that was the #1 beach access on Fort Myers Beach?
We told him that, and he happens to have some, I said, do you have any contacts in this tourist development thing? And he, well, yeah, he does, so we'll see. Anyhow, it was a really good visit. He really enjoyed it, and we did
Wonderful.
too, with his inputs. I failed to mention this at the budget hearing, and I feel very badly that I didn't mention this, but Goodwills does a lot of good in the Lee County community. And I told Alan, I said I was going to try to get some money in our budget for Goodwills because they do service to disadvantaged, disenfranchised people where they can't supply their own transportation, they have medical issues, and they fall outside the safety nets. And so Goodwills gets a certain amount of money from the state for those types of people, and it's paid back $9 to 1. So for every $1 he can raise from municipalities, the state gives him 9. And so they're struggling right now because of the need and lack of payments coming from other municipalities. Fort Myers in particular cut their budget dramatically, and that really has a big impact. And they were in a very big hurt because the state had cut the budget dramatically, and then they came back and ended up giving them a grant to make up for a lot of money. But they still have a big hole to fill. And I think it would be nice if we could throw something their way because it gets multiplied by 9.
Tell him to go see if he can speak at the Community Foundation this year, too.
Carla would know that.
I guess before I would want to spend our town money on it, I feel it's very unfair that the city of Fort Myers completely cut them from the budget. That I'd like to know how many runs they make out here. And if we're going to, yeah, if we're going to donate to it, I think it should be proportional, and I don't think we should be making up for the shortfall caused by the city of Fort Myers.
We're not going to make up for that because theirs was substantial.
Right, but any portion of it. If we have very few runs to the island, it doesn't seem fair that our taxpayers would be making up for the taxpayers of the city of Fort Myers who cut them from the budget.
I made my pitch.
Okay.
So my thought was $1,000, and then they get 9 times that.
Well, maybe Alan could send us something or give us some info and come pay us a visit or something. That'd be nice.
I would echo Joanne's idea to take it to the Community Foundation. They've given $1,000 easily to various groups like that here on the island.
And more.
All right. It was interesting in the paper the other day talking about the sailboat racings out at Captiva. I thought that was a very odd place to have that in terms of having people, spectators, people interested in going and seeing it. It seemed like to me that should have been on Fort Myers Beach or the Sanibel Causeway or something then way out there. And I noted in the paper they said, well, this is good because it helps people recognize Captiva, Sanibel, and downtown Fort Myers. They didn't mention Fort Myers Beach. Again, as typical, but that's because we're considered as a suburb of Fort Myers, as we all know.
Boy, we beat that drum for you, Bruce.
Yeah. Let's see, I mentioned Crescent Street. Okay, here's the last thing I had. You know, a year or so ago, we talked about the newspaper boxes and newspaper deliveries. Is anybody from the Observer here today?
We still have an Observer reporter. Do we even know?
Okay.
Oh, they watch the tape.
Okay, so here's a story. When we had the big discussion, we talked about the Observer particularly because it throws newspapers into people's driveways. And they said, all you have to do is call up the Observer and we will quit throwing them in your driveway at your request. Well, I have one neighbor that specifically swears to me that he called them. I sent him an email with 10 addresses not to deliver to. They continue to deliver these addresses. Their papers get stacked up when I'm not around or other neighbors aren't around. These papers get stacked up, and it just irritates me. So I'm going to.
They're in plastic bags, and it's basically pollution.
Yeah, I mean, I got pictures of them 3 and 4 weeks in a neighbor's driveway. And there's houses on our street that people have not lived in in 10 years, or 20 years maybe, I don't know, longer than I've been there. And yet they get newspaper deliveries every week. It's ridiculous. So at some point in time, I'm going to propose that we pass that ordinance that they can't do those deliveries, or they get fined if they're told to not deliver them and they do deliver them, or they have to come out and pick them up at the end of 3 days. They come back and pick them up. Anyhow, it's an irritant to me. I'll call them up and complain again, but based on my evidence, they don't care. They just throw them out. So that's the end of my speech.
It's fun.
They're not the only ones either. We get the coupon deliveries.
The shoppers.
Yeah, as well.
Oh, I don't get that.
I don't either.
Yeah, on our street, every week, we get a bag with coupons thrown in our driveway.
When we did the, that whole ordinance,
No, it's not
I
the
wanted
shopper.
them to have a little thing on your mailbox where the newspaper goes in. Up north, that's what you always did. That idea didn't fly, but I agree, something needs to be done. We get a lot of complaints about that in the neighborhoods.
They said that they were going to put a sticker on all the mailboxes that didn't want the delivery. And there's none of them out there. They just,
What were you
You know,
gonna say, Ray?
I caught the delivery man one morning a couple of years ago walking the dog, and I told him I didn't want the paper delivered anymore, and I never saw it again. So maybe that's your contact, is the delivery man,
Well, yeah,
you know.
okay.
But
All right.
I pick my neighbors up all the time.
Yeah, I
mean,
do
it is-
too.
It's a hassle.
Joanne?
Yeah, a few things. With regard to one of the public comments and the parking, I think the reference was to parking on Old San Carlos Boulevard at the meter. And it needs to be mentioned that that area has been limited in how long you can park there because the merchants along there want those to turn over. That's why it has been a short period of time. They don't
I
want,
would bet if you got every single person who has a business on that street, they would tell you that they would like that whole parking issue changed. I would bet they would.
great, but that's the history of that. And I'm just saying, if it should or whatever changed, then have at it. Another thing, I got an email, and I forwarded it to Roger with regard to the delivery of jet skis, boats, and things to properties from vendors who do not live on the island. And you call and order a jet ski or order a boat to be delivered to your property. The town had been through this previously, I know. It related to the Back Bay, and that we don't allow jet ski business on the Estero Preserve there. And I think it was a period of time ago before we actually had litigation about jet ski use on the Back Bay. So at any rate, this vendor is complaining, of course, that the individuals do not have a business license on the island, that we have a limited number of business licenses, and they appear to be conducting that business on the island. So I'm assuming that Roger and John, you'll pursue that.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And then just a quick note, they talked about the intersection of, is it Buccaneer? It's just the side streets, wherever they meet Estero Boulevard. I reiterate again that the county promised us that they would put drains there that will drain back to their system so that we don't have Lake Andre Mar anymore and all those. So I'm assuming that anything they do down at the south end will continue with the promise that they made to us. And that was no increased cost to us at the time. The county was absorbing that. And then the last thing was just with regard to the comment on bicycles and where do you park bicycles. Once again, I'm going to reiterate what I said during the comment about the design at the base of the bridge. There certainly seem to be areas there that could be the bicycle town and some place that we collect the bikes. We have that Center Street area, the town owns that right of way. It could be very logical to be there if no place else. But that's a great opportunity to also educate bicyclists about our regulations up and down the town. So it's the place that bicycles collect, it's where they park, but it's also where they read what our regulations are and all that. So I hope that whether that would be on Seafarers or on Center Street or whatever, that we come up with some consolidated area to do that. So that's all for me. Thank you.
I have several things. One, Michelle, did you get the answer? Did everybody answer about the Horizon Council event?
I have not heard from Mayor Saracita or Councilmember
So
Hossafras.
lackluster, both of them.
I thought I responded directly to them that I was unable to attend.
What was that date again? I think
It is October the 25th.
October 25th. Okay. Who's going? Okay, I'm going too.
Very much.
Yes.
I'm out of town. And by the way, I forgot one more thing. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I need an excused absence for November 4th. It's only the second one I've ever taken. My son's wedding and this Thanksgiving weekend, I cannot leave up north early. So,
You mean December or November?
oh, I'm sorry, it's December,
December.
the first
Okay,
first part of December. What is that date? I'm sorry.
I'll tell you. Well, we'll talk about the schedule here in just a second, so let's.
So at any rate, I need an excused absence for that date, which is.
December the 2nd?
I'm sorry, it is, yes, it would appear to be December 2nd.
Okay, so we have the Horizon Council settled. On October 16th, there's a water summit with Chauncey Goss in Bonita Springs. So if you'll let me know who would like to attend that, and it's at 6:30 PM.
The date again, please?
October 16th, I'll let the mayor know.
I would like to go.
I responded to that already
You're gonna,
positively.
okay, so
yes.
1, 2.
I am out of town. I
You're
don't
out
get
of
in until
town, and
late
I
that
know you're
night.
out of town
I'm out of
too.
town.
Okay, so 3 of us.
Where is that?
It's at the Bonita Springs City Council.
Oh.
We can go together.
And we could. And so now if we could talk about the schedule for a moment. So we have the BORCAB joint meeting scheduled for the 17th. Both Rexanne and I will be out of town on the 17th. And Allison did contact BORCAB members for availability on the 15th and/or 16th. Joanne, are you telling me you're not here on the 16th?
I don't get home till midnight. My flight gets in midnight of the 16th.
Midnight of the 16th. Is everyone available on the 15th by chance? That we could move that, you're not, Rex, when do you leave? You leave the,
I'm leaving approximately the 10th, I think, or 11th, and coming back like not till the 25th or 26th. So, you know.
so what if we, okay.
It's the only vacation I take all year.
Yeah, it's just, nobody has to make excuses for why they're not going to be here. Lord knows we all work very hard. But I think that this is a meeting that all of us need to be in attendance for. So, so we may put this off until November, or maybe, what about I didn't ask about the 28th or 29th. Let me get back with Allison on,
That last week of October?
yeah.
I'm
Is
in.
everybody here the 28th, 29th?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll give, Michelle, could we give Allison the 28th, 29th option for the BORCAB general meeting? And see if that worked. Bruce, not you?
I'm here, but I'm busy on the afternoon of the 28th.
Okay, so it'd be the morning of the 28th, or, well, let's look at both mornings there, but morning, okay? All right, so that's the 17th.
Now, you're talking about the joint session.
Joint session, correct. But also, we have a work session scheduled for the 17th, so it would be moving that work session, joint session, the whole thing. Isn't there a work session also scheduled?
MMP.
That's what I meant, MMP, work session, same thing. And we also have a meeting scheduled the 21st, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And don't forget, we have the FAA in the afternoon on the 21st. The Southwest Regional Administrator is going to be here.
Mayor, do I understand that you're looking to move the October 17 MNP and the joint session to possibly the 28th or the 29th?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so that takes care of everything for October. I'm going to tell you that this could change today, but I believe that I will not be here for the 4th and the 7th of November. And so when we look at, it doesn't necessarily mean anything other than the meeting that we discussed this morning, having talk about the traffic. If that could go to the 18th of November, that gives them a little bit of time if they're not willing to shift at all. Does anybody else have any conflicts for November? Meetings are technically scheduled the 4th, the 7th, and the 18th. Ray, you have
Yeah,
conflicts?
I'll be gone in, somewhere in the middle of the month there.
Bruce, do you have any conflicts that you know of?
Nope.
Joanne, you're okay, and Rexanne, you don't have any either?
Nope.
Okay.
Here anytime in November.
Do
Okay.
we have a meeting on the, normal, regular council meeting on the 11th? Do we have?
No, 4, 7, 18.
Okay, so I would be gone then, that 11 week
Well,
somewhere
that's
in there.
fine. All right. So then it won't, I'll just ask for excused absences on the 4th and the 7th, but I would ask that, Roger, you look at the 18th for the meeting on the traffic recirculation.
Madam Mayor, I think you and I perhaps should just understand when the county commissioner can make it. You have asked for his attendance and the county staff. I think that's going to pretty much dictate when that,
Okay.
that meeting is, so
I'll reach out to him.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. And anybody have, Joanne, you have a conflict for the 2nd? Anybody else have any conflicts on the 2nd? I don't know what will be scheduled that day.
It is what it is.
Okay.
I have confidence in the 4th.
Here's
Just carry
a
on.
suggestion.
Yep.
It seems, are we going to do a second meeting in December or no?
Right now, no.
We usually don't.
Okay, well, then I was thinking, well, why not just move that?
Yeah, we usually don't. We usually don't have a second meeting.
Yeah, so then why not just move
Move the
everything back a
second?
week?
It's fine with me. It does take it out of the week after Thanksgiving zone. Could we move the December meetings to the 9th and the 12th as opposed to the 2nd and the 5th?
For me, I could tell you the 9th will work. I'm not so sure about the 12th. I'll have to check that.
About the
But the
5th and
5th
the
and
9th?
the 12th,
For
5th and the
5th?
9th.
Sure.
It gives staff a little more time after the holiday, maybe to get.
5th for the MP, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
And, yeah, that would work.
Is there a TDC in December? When you're moving
Um,
Thursday meetings, you often
mhm.
bump up against them.
Don't know. I
So
don't
we
have that
leave it as the
scheduled.
5th. Leave the M&P as the 5th and move the TC to 9.
Yeah.
The December TDC meeting is December the 12th.
Okay. So let's leave the work session for Thursday, the 5th, and move the Monday meeting to the 9th. Okay?
File everything in before the holidays, give it a little more
Exactly.
time.
But it does give that after Thanksgiving period a little break. Okay. Anything else from anybody on the schedule? Okay.
Mayor, just for clarification, there was
Mhm.
some confusion about this coming Wednesday. October the 9th, Public Safety Committee meeting starts at 2:00 PM,
Mhm.
and the Marine Resources Task Force meeting is at 5:00 PM.
3 hours.
The discussion with the FDOT, the presentation by the MPO is at 3:30 during the Public Safety Committee meeting.
That's
That's the
very
lighting.
crammed up schedule.
That's the lighting part.
That's the lighting part. Oh, I want to see that. That's this Wednesday.
He didn't anticipate they would get through the whole thing in one meeting.
Oh, but just having the timeline of the Marine Resource Task Force. What does everybody think about that? Do we ask Marine Resource Task Force to reschedule their meeting?
2 meetings going on here at the same time before, haven't we?
Well, not in the same chambers.
No, they
Right.
move them upstairs.
Yeah,
Oh, they move upstairs.
Right, I think we should ask we'll have the Marine Task Force be upstairs.
Excellent idea. Good idea. Good idea, Rex. Okay. Public safety. Okay, anything else on scheduling from anybody? All right, so the other thing I'll talk about this more when we have our work session, but I keep thinking a lot, and I had a few conversations this weekend about what happens in March. 3 of us are gone. Well, wait, are 3 of us gone? I don't know, I hope not, but 2 of us for sure are gone. And there's so much institutional stuff that we've worked on and that we're thinking about and working on. And I want to call this a succession plan. You know, thinking in terms of our strategic planning, Michelle has got another year here. Roger has said he's going to be here for however many times, but you know, not forever. It just, we need to have a plan in place, in my opinion, of what happens next. And this should be something that should be in place, not just for us, but for the town going forward, where, you know, what is the line of duty? It's always been an appointment, or that's who's in charge, but is that really the best way to handle the absence of the town manager? I don't think so. There should be some succession. And for the clerk, there should be some succession. Here's the person who fills in, here's what happens, here's the person in training, I mean, you know, we've got time right now to think about who's next, what's next. I mean, our positions obviously are elected, but still, what do we leave that next group to go forward with?
Key fobs.
Hopefully a little more than our key fobs, but and not to say, here's what you should be doing, but here's a clear picture of what we've done, where we're going, what we were thinking, and I think it could be really helpful. But we could talk more about this in the work session. I'd really like us to talk about that plan, because I think it's something that's missing in the town, and it's, you know, could be, I mean, there have been times in the town's past where it's a very uneasy moment, and it shouldn't be. It should be something that's like, oh, well, okay, Bob Lang is out. The person that fills in for Bob Lang is Andrea or Amanda or whatever. There should be that succession.
I agree. I think Roger's worked on that pretty well. I know that he's worked on that a lot for Michelle's position going on, but I think it's a good topic of conversation.
Okay. And I don't have anything else, I don't think. Well, I'm going to touch on one thing.
Go for it.
So it always worries me when we have an angry group. I understand it, but there's that moment of volatility that concerns me in this day and age. And I really would like for the town to consider Town Hall as a safe place, an arms-free place, you know, this was really years ago. When did Broder get killed at the school board? Yeah, I'm going to be just exactly what they're saying. Take away their guns, take away their liberties, take away their whatever. I just think it's something we should think about. I think it's something we should think about. People ought to feel completely safe here. And I'm just saying that for the record and hoping you all will think about it. Okay, I have nothing else on that. Anybody with anything else they'd like to add? Rexanne?
I was just going to move to adjourn.
Okay, there's a motion to adjourn. It's 12:12 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
And any
Fourth.
discussion on the motion? No objection. It's 12:13 p.m. now, and we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.